Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to V8SCOPS for 2025 here on SimSpeed TV. Goodness gracious, I've been waiting for a very long time for this series to get going once more with a brand new slate of cars, but many of the same very talented competitors here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in virtual Montreal on the virtual Ile Notre Dame. This is a fantastic circuit to start the season, always hyped to get things going and see who's going to come away with first blood in the 2025 season. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch and Kick, it's me, Reese Gardner, with David Haynes alongside me in the commentary box, Jay Kennedy behind the scenes, pressing all the buttons, bringing you these live pictures. Well, David, we went through it a bit on Friday as well. Montreal, perfect opening track, in my opinion, to start off this season. It's a very challenging circuit, plenty of heavy braking zones, plenty of chicanes as well, but it really sorts out the great drivers from the good.
Yeah, it's a great place to be racing, an incredible amount of history to it. It's beautiful, but what it also has is a character of the semi-permanent street circuit, very reminiscent of where we normally take these kind of cars racings, places like the Gold Coast, Adelaide Parkland street circuit, places like that, maybe a tiny bit of Albert Park. That it's a street circuit, it's very unforgiving, but it is shaped in a really awesome way for racing.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to be seeing the outline of the circuit appear very shortly. It's going to be 4.3 kilometers of winding track between concrete walls at very high speeds as well. Overtaking opportunities, mainly at turn 1 and 2. We're going to be seeing some great moves being done through there. There's a chance to slip by at turns 3 and 4, but got to keep an eye out for the concrete wall on exit. Turn 6, another passing opportunity, but you really want to set it up for the braking zone into 8 and 9. And you can use that in turn to set up for the braking zone at turn 10, the Lapangla hairpin. And then down the very long Casino Straight where Slipstream is king, and up to turns 13 and 14, the final chicane and the Wall of Champions. Also pit entry, which is going to once again be very relevant here tonight. Compulsory pit stops on the cards for tonight's racing, which means there's going to be a lot of drivers going deep in that braking zone to try and get into the pits in the most efficient manner possible. You can stand to lose or gain a bunch of time just there. Split 2 is first up on the cards tonight, but we should keep an eye out for what is left to come here before the session gets going. It is foggy out there at the moment, and this is the schedule for the season. The standard round format, 200 Ks, and we're going to be racing for that length here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. But this is a great schedule, David. It's in many ways a greatest hits of all of the circuits that we've been to over the years, with a couple of new ones. Manicourt making an appearance for round 2. Very interested to see how they go at Hockenheim and Navarra as well. We go back to Motegi for the last regular round of the season before the Endurance Cup, which is that trifecta of the iconic Australian tracks.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to across the whole year on this schedule, including 1,000 kilometres at Mount Panorama, schedule that one in, lock it in, get ready for that. But I was also going to point out Navarra as a relatively new track that wouldn't have appeared before on this schedule. The rest of them do match some of the character of other Australian circuits that we know, including here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where that semi-permanent street circuit is such a fixture of these racing cars.
Yep, we have a true street circuit at Belle Isle as well for round 5, which is going to be magnificent. That's going to be one of the shorter rounds this season, 150k. It's all up for the event length. And the same format will be taken at Motegi. There's a couple of really interesting round formats here. We have the split sprint of 2 100k races. We've got the super sprint of 75 and 150k races. A really good variety of formats that we're going to be tackling over the course of the season.
Yeah, so 200 kilometers, pretty straightforward to kick us off. They're going to need that pit lane to the left at least a couple of times. It's an interesting racing circuit as far as the pit in, the pit out, and all the strategy that you're going to need to do across 200 kilometers of racing.
Absolutely. Well, Split 2, of course, is first up. The drivers that weren't able to make it into the top times to set Split 1. We have a 23-lap single race on the cards here with a time limit of 50 minutes. If there's a couple of safety cars, then we could face going time certain. 60% fuel tank restriction, 1 compulsory pit stop to make their way across. And well, there's all likelihood that you're going to have to take a bit of fuel in that compulsory pit stop, but also tyres as well. Gen 3, of course, being raced seriously in a big league for one of the first times this year. And one of the things that the drivers have noticed, and that I've certainly noticed in Gen 3, is yes, they do drive a little bit easier in some ways than the Gen 2 cars do, but the tyre characteristics are still very much the same. You can only get the best out of them for the first maybe 10, 15 laps of the stint, and then you start losing a bit of pace. Not necessarily grip, but the lap times do get slower. I think the drivers will be very happy to see that it's a very cold track out there. Only 21 degrees Celsius as the track is surrounded by fog.
Yeah, we got... Oh, so that's the pit entry. Keep an eye out on that one, 80 k's an hour. But yeah, you're still dealing with a big, heavy car with a locked spool for a differential. So you're throwing it around on the tyres. You're using up the tyres, and therefore you're going to get them past their best temperature. You're going to wear them down. All of that. But yeah, cool enough track today. Very foggy, you know. Better have your navigation lights on your Seaway Mats ships going through the canal.
Yeah, you certainly do. We have a pretty high chance of, well, pretty high humidity going on the way through there. 96%, so a lot of water vapor in the air, but not much of a chance of rain. It's going to be a long time in the day before rain has any chance at all, and even then it's only a maximum of 3%. So it's going to be a dry race. Exactly what we want here for the first official race of the real V8SCOPS season for 2025. The driver's currently at the end of practice at the moment. There is no qualifying session because, once again, the grid for Split 2 is set by the pre-qualifying times. So keep an eye out for that grid to eventually be set when we flick things over. But it's just great to see those Mustangs and Camaros out there.
Visually, I am a big fan of these cars. They are a little bit wider, a little closer to what the road-going cars look like, a little less cartoonish, a little more serious and fearsome, and so that's certainly one of the things. Look at them from behind. Suddenly, just so much wider, lower, fatter than the previous generation of car that looked more like a children's drawing of the car than a mean, racing, exciting version of a Ford Mustang.
Yes, and I think one of the things that I loved the most about the Gen 3 Mustang when it was unveiled a couple of years ago was that it actually looks like a Mustang, because the Gen 2 Mustang, of course, was created very specifically with a certain aerodynamic profile, and so it didn't fully resemble the road car. It was a bit of an interesting call there, but this is very much a Mustang-shaped machine here, which I love. And we have the Chevrolet Camaro out there as well. We're looking forward to seeing the Camaro versus Mustang come to V8SCOPS. We've already had plenty of great racing in the official iRacing V8 Supercar Series. Of course, I had the pleasure of being part of one of this season's races at Phillip Island. So we're looking forward to seeing how these things tackle Montreal. Getting a replay here at the end of the practice session, demonstrating that pit entry, car getting on the brakes for the final corner, but then you get on the brakes for pit entry behind them and you have to take some avoiding action. We're going to be seeing that more than once here tonight.
I'd absolutely agree with that. Yeah, you saw how much further back the car going for pit lane was, and they still weren't safe to, you know, commit to it. If you're right in behind someone, you might pull to the inside and then just straight out brake them going for the pit entry. But it's when you're that sort of 1 second, 1.5 seconds back, you're going for pit lane, the car in front isn't, that you've either got to check up and lose some time, or, you know, hope that they're going to go full commitment into the chicane and you'll clear them. It's a very interesting headlight treatment right there.
It certainly is. Sebastian Tixier once again making an appearance here, staying in a Mustang with the Platinum Racing team. It's always been good to see Seb Tixier racing. He's very active outside of V8s as well. Lives in Singapore, I believe, and also takes part in the Grand Prix Legends Lotus 49 series. So he's certainly no stranger to cars that have a wayward rear end and a bit less downforce than you'd expect.
And that makes him pretty close to your time zone. You'd be more likely to go to Singapore than the eastern states, wouldn't you, buddy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, an airfare's an airfare, so it's still not something I can quite afford, but a couple of my mates and I have been discussing a trip to the Singapore Grand Prix sometime in the next few years, so we'll see if that ends up happening. Tixier catching the grass into the chicane there, going for a little bit of an adventure. Certainly would have been interesting having that experience in VR as Tixier is currently racing. Well, at the very end of the practice session, it looks like Michael Taliancic is well and truly on top. Ewan Baker held that top position for a while in the Synergy Sim Racing Mustang, but Tally is on top in the 777 and showing some great pace. I'm not quite aware of the specific grid order that we're going to be starting in, but I'm sure that Tally and Baker are going to be near the top at least.
Yeah, I'm going to look to see if that's already known here within the sim. Don't necessarily see it. It's Scott Gamble, 17th at the hairpin. The location of the hairpin moved in 2002. It used to be a little bit further down, but rather than move the grandstands and everything else to give more runoff, they moved the hairpin to create a little bit more runoff down there. Circuit's changed a handful of times since it first opened in 1978. Big couple of decades here on this island, because in 1965 this island didn't exist. Then in 1967 they man-made the island. Then they had the World Expo, and then they had the Olympics. And then they opened a casino and a rowing lake, and now they've got the pinnacle of everything that's ever happened on Ile Notre Dame in Montreal. V8SCOPS Split 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I honestly do think that this track is one of the best out there for supercar racing. It's a fantastic track in every way. For categories like this, of course, it is most famous for hosting Formula One, but there's been a variety of categories that have raced at this circuit over the years. We've had Champ Car race here. We've had NASCAR nationwide, now known as Xfinity, Grand Am, plenty of other series besides. And, you know, I think if supercars was to ever go international again in the real world, I think Circuit Gilles Villeneuve would be a pretty good shout, because it's produced some magnificent racing on the sim in the last few years. Well, practice is just about over, and we'll be getting ready to gear up for a fantastic opening round of this series for 2025. Daniel Benefield is your pole sitter in the 034 for 9.5 Sim Sports in that Racecraft Simulations Mustang. So keep an eye out for him here. Usually expect to see Benefield in the sports car realm of things, but he's decided to go full V8 this year. We'll see how he stacks up.
Yeah, he'll be a little lost in that cockpit. He'll be thinking, I'm sitting on the wrong side. Where's my hybrid deployment button? Gee, these braking distances are long.
Yeah, absolutely. Very long braking distances, no traction control or ABS, 600 plus horsepower going to both rear wheels at the same time. Well, session flicks over, and we can go through our grid here for the 23-lap race to come. Remember, 60% fuel tank restriction and a compulsory pit stop for at least 2 tires. Drivers will likely be taking all 4. Daniel Benefield on pole position. Michael Taliancic is going to line up alongside him on the first row of the grid. Kenneth Latta in P3. Good performance from him in Fishy Motorsports. He'll start alongside Brett Loxton, with Marco Nomella, a new name to V8SCOPS, and the 86 starting alongside Ewan Baker. Beautiful livery on that Glacier Racing Camaro. Benjamin Smith going to start in P8, starting alongside Paul Young there. And Tyson Broad and Kobe Jones will round out our top 10.
Starting out of 11th is going to be Scott Mackay with Troy Stone Street alongside him. Those two know each other from racing some other V8 leagues as well. Same to be said for Scott Gamble, who's going to start out of 13th. There's Billy Mole in 14th on the grid. Angus Lawford and Tyler Blackburn are 15th and 16th with their Ford Mustangs on the grid there. Sebastian Tixier, who we looked at in the practice, is 17th. Justin Wallace is 18th. Well, William Sapstead and Michael Whiting are 19th and 20th on the grid for this race.
Starting out of 21st, we have Russell Pepperell for Kiwi Sim Racing Speed Nation. Jamie Dyke starts alongside him for Fishy Motorsports. Matthew Pluck, again, Kiwi Sim Racing, starting out of 23rd alongside Adam Hughes for Blackout OPR. Jake Edwards and Ryan Mueller, 25th and 26th. Jared Lamprey and Josh Drage are going to start 27th and 28th. Our field getting rounded out very shortly by Blake Fitzpatrick, William Brown, and Rob Tomei. Oh, that is a name that I have not seen in a very long time. Probably over 10 years since I last saw him on a grid. We get ready now for our opportunity here to take the start, but it won't be coming for Seb Tixier, unfortunately. It seems he's had PC issues and has had to drop from the server, so we've already lost one driver here, and that's far from ideal there. He was going to be starting in the midfield and would have had some great chances to work his way forward, but it ultimately will not happen.
No, unfortunate that. And 2 cars that are present but not on the grid that could also be important are the 2 safety cars.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 safety cars in the form of the BMW M2 CS Racing. Hopefully, it'll be a while before we get our first appearances from them. But for now, get ready for the grid timer to end and for the race to start. Lights about to go up here for round 1 of V8SCOPS Split 2 here at Montreal. Beautiful field of cars. Shame that Tixier's grid spot is empty. Also seeing an empty grid spot there as well for, it looks like, might be Paul Young, who's not been able to take to the start. Well, the revs rise in any case. And it's going to be Daniel Benefield versus Michael Taliancic on the front row as we are away, and that is a great launch from Benefield. The second phase, though, belongs to Taliancic and Latta. Brett Loxton got a bit of a jump off the start, and oh, we're already getting our first spin there. Marco Nomella gets spun in front of the field, and it causes a pile up here in the opening couple of turns. Another Camaro backwards too. Seb Tixier's just gone back into the server, and he's going to the end of pit lane. Very convenient timing for him. Much of the field getting slowed up by that. Looks like Rob Tomei, Ryan Mueller also involved in that. Jared Lamprey was also backwards at the first turn.
Tixio will be walking back into the room holding pizza, discovering that everything is on fire. So goes the meme. A couple of good position gainers off that opening lap there, but with the contact with Nurmala, and then one of the 9.5 cars just rolled backwards straight onto the apex, and you could see what was going to happen. And what was going to happen happened, is that 10 or so cars were going to get damaged, spin around, and create a significant bottleneck. And I think you got someone's engine smoking back there as well.
Yeah, already some quite large damage for a few cars. Scott Gamble and Seb Tixier bringing up the field as Paul Young has managed to get back into the server as well. He will not go a lap down. Good to see. So a safety car will certainly benefit himself and Tixier. Benefield and Taliancic at the front of the field, the only drivers in the server, apart from Ryan Mueller in 26, who still occupy the same position they started in. Here comes the slipstream down the back stretch, almost side by side there. It looked like Kenneth Latta was trying to line up Ewan Baker for a move, but it was not going to happen.
That's one lap completed through past the wall of champions and onto the pit straight. A good start from your front row, Benefield and Taliancic. I think are going to try to sort of pace this field out a little bit. Helps by contact inside of the top 10 behind them. That's cost a lot of time for everyone else in this race.
Yeah, a lot of big costs here on the opening laps. Keep an eye on the battle here, because Kenneth Latta is under a lot of pressure from Kobe Jones, racing for 5th and 6th at the moment. Latta's not gotten off to the start that he wanted, down 2 spots from where he started, but he could get an opportunity to gain some more spots soon, because at the end of lap 2 the pit window will officially open. You're not going to be pitting this early unless you've got damage or you're really wanting to try something different. I would expect drivers to wait until about the halfway point to get things going there. So here comes the replay of the opening couple of corners here. Good start once again from our leaders, but keep an eye there on the spacey Mountainous Camaro. Gets tapped by the Race on Oz Mustang, and then, oh, it all gets even worse. Jackson Lamprey there going incredibly backwards, and drivers everywhere having to take avoiding action for those 2 Camaros that were unfortunately spun around there on their way through turns 1 and 2. Fortunately, it seems like not much else has happened in terms of disasters for people, so back to racing action, live out of the final corner. Kobe Jones ever closer to Kenneth Latta.
Yeah, Latta started 3rd on the grid, didn't get away particularly well, now under a little bit more pressure. Brett Loxton and Ewan Baker got past him into 3rd and 4th, so whatever the case, it seems like Ken Latta hasn't got away how he would like, and this is something we're going to see a whole lot of, slowdown penalties from that final chicane. This is a car that can fly across the curbs, but the track limits say no, so it really is the Gold Coast of Canada.
It certainly is. The slowdown penalties are brutal here, especially if you go off at the final chicane, get a little bit too far onto those wide anti-cut curbs, and you're going to be paying for it all the way to turn 1. Look at this battle here. This is a great pack that's fighting here. Car 750 for the time being. Russell Pepperell. Bit of a slide there, coming out of turn 6 or 7, I believe. Turn 7. He's going to come under pressure here. Jake Edwards, run up the inside here in the One Performance Racing Mustang. He gets the position done very nicely. So, position change right there. Is there any fight back for Pepperell down at the hairpin? Pepperell's one of those drivers that's been trying to gain spots here. Most positions gained in the field so far belongs to William Brown in the 96 just up ahead. Brown is up 13 places and looking good for a good result so far. But now, though, back to our top 3. Benefield, Taliancic and Loxton, they are very close together. They're lapping closely as well. Seems like Ewan Baker, Kenneth Latta, Kobe Jones, not quite able to respond.
Seeing a bit further back, Tyler Blackburn. Maybe have a slowdown as they're battling in front of him. Benjamin Smith and Billy Mole side by side into 1 as well. So this all going on here. Side by side at the head of the train. Blackburn's dropped back into the middle of the train with a slowdown penalty that he had. And I think someone else, Troy Stonestreet, might be trying to clear one here as well.
Oh, all right. Gently does it here. On your way through the opening sector of the track, William Sapstead facing a lot of pressure for the moment. Troy Stonestreet now back up to where he started in 12th, but Sapstead is suffering some technical issues. Hopefully he'll be able to sort that out, or the netcode gods smile on him. Back to the battle between Kenneth Latter and Kobe Jones. Looks like they're slowing each other up a bit, and Tyson Broad is starting to catch up to them as they're all losing touch here with the top four.
Different line through the hairpin, all about how you get the power down, because you are so slow, 50 k's an hour through that hairpin, and then launching up through the gears full horsepower to 270, 280 k's an hour. Someone's been turned around back there with the overlap, with the concertina effect through the hairpin. It's Angus Lawford.
Yeah, the Project 36 Mustang stricken on the side of the circuit, can't flick it around until everyone's gotten past him, but finds that clear spot and falls all the way down to 30th place. Such a shame there for Lawford. And it looks like it might have been Justin Wallace who had a part to play in this in the race on Oz Camaro. Trying around the outside, and Lawford trying to go defensive there, squeezed Wallace a little bit on the exit. Seems like they came together. Looked like a little bit of a flick there from the race on Oz car, and ultimately they came together. Lawford could do absolutely nothing about that.
A bit on the way in, a bit on the way out. Angus Lawford gets turned. Troy Stonestreet's got another slowdown. He's hurting with that. Caused a bit of a check-up as well with the group behind. You're seeing the front, the leaders close up just a little bit. This top four, Talyancic with the fastest lap of the race. Brett Loxton and Ewan Baker finding their feet as well. Ken Latter still just keeping a few cars behind him. There's a couple of big battles going on, and I think it's all about don't get a slowdown. They're so costly here. Don't cut those chicanes if you can afford it.
Yeah,
or if
absolutely.
you do, be precise.
Kobe Jones has gotten past Kenneth Latter there. See them pop out from behind the wall. The Mustang is ahead of the Camaro, but for how long? Latter gets a slightly better exit out of the hairpin there, going for the wide line, the straighter exit. Did I see a little bit of a brake drag there from Latter? Looks like he wasn't too keen to go for the move. Well, apparently no one told Tyson Broad, who's going to force Latter off the track at the chicane.
Ewan Baker with a slowdown penalty, Ken Latter with a slowdown penalty, Kobe Jones with a slowdown penalty. It's Oprah Winfrey in the race control right now. Ken Latter will think, I've been shoved off there, and not be entirely happy with it. Ewan Baker was in this top four. Now he's away from it. It's just a top three, all within 1 second. Daniel Benfield, Michael Talyancic, and on board with third place, Brett Loxton. There's a nice, comfy window of time, almost 3 seconds behind Brett Loxton. Three-way fight at the moment up front.
Yeah, it's looking good. It's a very nice battle indeed. I'm enjoying every second of this. What I love is that the racing is crazy close here up the front. Sometimes with the Gen 2 cars, you got one or two drivers completely running away with it at the front and not seeing much of any kind of response from the people behind. Well, the top three solidly locked together here in split two, which is exactly what we want to see. And Talyancic edging ever closer to Daniel Benefield. I almost thought there'd be half a chance of a move there at the hairpin, but Tally is a wry pair of hands there at the wheel of that Mustang. He'll certainly be waiting for the right opportunity. Look at this aerial view here, Broad versus Latter there, and you could see that Broad got alongside. Latter was trying to fight him on the way through. And, it's practically impossible to go side by side through that last chicane.
That's a great use of the word, practically impossible, because it's physically possible, but in practical terms, no, it's not practical to do it. So it is practically impossible.
Indeed. I like to think that I choose my words carefully on occasion, probably about 1% of the time. The other 99% it just dribbles out, as it were. Regardless, we're seeing some early pit stops. Russell Pepperell pitted a couple of laps ago, and it looked like a routine stop for him. Seeing that race control is reviewing the incident between Latter and Broad there, adding to the big list already of issues that they're looking at. But Seb Tixier has just come into the pits as well. Marco Nurmela only a lap out of the lane himself. We've had 3 cars stop so far. It looks like a pretty routine stop for Tixier as well. Remember, Tixier was massively disadvantaged with computer issues at the start of the race, and so he had to start from pit lane. It makes sense that he'll be going for this kind of strategy. Get his pit stop out of the way, get some good laps done in clear air, and if there's a safety car later on in the race, then he'll be able to take advantage.
So what are Talliancic and Loxton thinking here? We haven't seen either of them really look to make a move on Daniel Benefield. Benefield's pace still has this podium pulling away from the rest of the field. So is it sit and wait until the pit stops for Talliancic and Loxton right now?
Yeah, this is the question. Because the undercut is always strong in these cars. The tyres are at their best right out of the box. You bolt them on and they're immediately at their maximum level of grip, of pace, of performance. So if you're locked in a battle like this, there is potential for you to pull a fast one on the guys in front of you and go for it into the pit lane. Question is, will Talliancic and Loxton do that? As through the hairpin on replay, we have the number 91 of Benjamin Smith having a bit of a slide on the exit there, and that opens up half an opportunity to the Camaro alongside, but the race on Oscar gets sent into the wall almost off the grass, and that's ultimately going to be 3 positions lost there for Benjamin Smith. Jamie Dyke, the last of those cars to make his way through, was battling with Troy Stonestreet and Billy Mole for 12th position.
Constantly got the screen up that lets me know who's got a black flag, who's got a meatball, who's got a slowdown penalty. Just saw another one pop up for Ken Latta. This is a circuit where I'm seeing that every lap someone is cutting one of these chicanes, taking too much curb through the final chicane is one of the common ones, but you can also have it happen at sort of turn 6, 7 there, closer towards town and a few of these other places. Talliancic is having a look now.
He was going tight on the exit of the hairpin there, almost fancied a chance of getting alongside Benefield, but Daniel, in running wide out of the hairpin, was able to get on the power fully earlier and was able to carry that momentum out. But the slipstream is still a factor here. You were talking about pit stops potentially for Talliancic and Loxton and what they can do. I mean, yeah, they could try and undercut Benefield, but it has occurred to me once again the nature of pit entry at this circuit. Benefield's going to be braking at the normal point for the final chicane, and they'll have to lift off. Big slide there from the race, from the 95 Sim Sports Mustang. Looks like Benefield might be starting to struggle with tyres here, so could he be the first to make his way into the pits? That's the thing. If you're behind someone and you want to come into the pits, you're going to have to either give up time or just go flat out past them as they're braking for the final chicane, which can be very dangerous.
Yeah, I think if you're this close, though, it's possible that you, just before the braking zone, pull your nose to the inside and go down the inside of them, swap back to the pit entry, particularly when you're this top 3 here, right? If you're talking about doing this in a pack in sort of 12th, 13th, 14th or something, more difficult. But when you're this leading trio, I reckon Talliancic, if he gets right up behind Daniel Benefield, coming off the hairpin, and he pulls his nose to the inside of the chicane, he can clear Benefield no worries. And we've just seen an example, though, of how these tyres are dropping off and new tyres are very strong. Seb Tixier takes the fastest lap of the race on his new set.
Yeah, and that is nearly a 10th faster than Talliancic's former fastest lap. So Tixier, have to wonder how things would have worked out for him if he hadn't had those PC issues. Coming into the final corner then for these lead trio cars. Another incident under review for William Brown versus Adam Hughes at turn 14. Michael Whiting coming into the pit lane. It looks like Kenneth Latta there ahead of him. The fishy cars making their way into the lane. Neither of them with a black flag. So this is a routine pit stop for fishy.
Would you like to know that there's a slowdown penalty for William Sapp, said Marco Nurmela, Reese Mueller, Blake Fitz, William Brown. Yeah, no, I just saw 5 of them pop up just then.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy. Oh boy, the Evolution Racing Team machine of, I believe that might be Scott Gamble there, finding his way through but is this lap traffic here? Because Gamble is classed as ahead of TXA on my timing. Yeah, it looks like that Mustang might be different.
Sapstead and Scott Mackay, position 8th and 9th here.
Oh yeah, okay. So it wasn't Gamble. My apologies.
Sapstead had a slowdown penalty. He's also got a bit of damage, mainly on the front right, but also across the whole bumper.
Yeah, seems like it's been a bit of a rough race for William Sapstead thus far.
I met the Wall of Champions and all I got to show for it was this damaged bumper.
I reckon a few drivers should put that on their cars for next round, maybe for a little one-off livery, but we'll have to wait and see. Regardless, it's been good to see that William Sapstead has still been able to make some great moves up the field. He's one of many drivers that are up 11 spots. Blake Fitzpatrick at the moment is the car with the most positions gained as penalties are coming in. 10-second time penalty for Benjamin Smith for that contact back on lap 1 with Marco Namella. And seeing a 5-second penalty for car 543 of Scott Gamble for not holding brakes. Remember, Gamble was one of the cars involved in that pile up in the first couple of turns, and the car he affected was the number 81 car. For that, William Sapstead, yes. So, not ideal, but race control working their way through that penalty list in due course.
Well, you were reeling that off, Scott Mackay. This is what we're going to see. He's locked up these rears and had to shortcut the final chicane. It's cost him a couple of spots. He gets in a bit hot here. Yep. And then, yeah, a tiny bit of contact there even on the way in. And having skipped that chicane, jumped across the curb, there's a slowdown penalty to serve all the way down the pit straight. And then he had to clear out in turn 1 and let some cars through as well. What's going on up here? Ewan Baker's closing in on the leaders again. Daniel Benefield from Michael Taliancic from Brett Loxton, as it's been for a little bit. Loxton a couple of car lengths further back. And this is about to sort of be the halfway point of the race here as well, if you're looking at splitting it up halvesies.
Yeah, this is the question. Just wanted to say, William Sapstead got very lucky there with that lock-up from Mackay. Surely contact was made, but fortunately it wasn't turned around. Regardless, next car to come into the pits is Justin Wallace, as Taliancic now right on the bumper of Benefield. And this is a big part of the sort of psychological games of racing this car as well. If you're all up in the mirrors of the car in front of you, you're making them burn up their tyres a little quicker. And, you know, yeah, they'll be fast for a time at the start of the race, but as the tyres fall off, then you start to struggle a bit more. If you overdrive the car trying to stay ahead, then that's exactly what happens. Benefield, though, making good work of the exit of turn 7 and getting himself a little more breathing space versus Michael Taliancic. We're almost at the halfway point of the race here. And we'll surely find these top guys coming to the pits very soon. We've had many drivers from lower down in the field find their way into the pits early. Leader of the cars that have pitted is Michael Whiting down in 17th place. Just noticed there's also been a problem for Troy Stonestreet as well. He's just fallen way down the order. And it looks like a problem at turns 1 and 2 there for the WK&P Camaro.
Many other cars pitting, including some others inside of the top 10. Is this the lap that these top 3 think about pitting? It's not, but it is for Ewan Baker, and he was the right distance back to absolutely McDelivery that one in.
Absolutely, that was fantastic from Baker. Perfect car placement, was able to lose practically no time there. Didn't have to slow up any earlier. Now the pressure is on.
Good opportunity for him here, right? Because Taliancic got a bit sideways. Brett Loxton's boxed in behind them. I reckon Ewan Baker might be able to undercut his way onto the podium here if this gets messy between Taliancic and Loxton right now.
Yeah, I agree. Hearing that we're going to get a replay here of 2 cars coming out of the pits. Looks like this... Oh, this is Stonestreet. Oh no, Stonestreet got on the power a bit too early. That's on new tyres, and teammate behind meanwhile. Oh no! That's far from ideal for the WK&P cars. Both making the same error on the way out of the lane, just a bit too much power being fed on.
Baker's got traffic. Baker's caught traffic on his outlap here, so he's in behind Blake Fitz, who hasn't stopped. He's gotten ahead of Jake Edwards and Matthew Pluck, who have stopped. But for Ewan Baker, you'd hope that this outlap is the one that you'd fire up those tyres, get that undercut. But he's wanted to come out in the clear space ahead of Blake Fitz, ended up just behind him. It's been costly right now, but is this being costly for the guys he's racing against?
Yeah, this is not ideal for Baker. For the undercut to really work, you have to have clear air when you come out of the pits, and that's why timing a pit stop is so important. I think for all we know, that could be a potential podium slipping out of Ewan Baker's hands. Well, up the front, many of these guys go for the pit lane. They're very aggressive on the way in. They're all going to follow each other into the pit lane. Benefield, Talliansich and Loxton all in. Now the question is, will Kobe Jones and Tyson Broad follow them in too? Looks like Kobe's not going to. Neither is Tyson. They'll fall through to the top two running positions here. But keep an eye on Ewan Baker coming down the back straight here as Benefield, Talliansich and Loxton have only just reached their pit boxes. Tell you what, this undercut may very well work, but we need to keep an eye out for turns 1 and 2. The pit exit cuts the first turn there. Benefield's already away. Baker's making his way into turn 1 now. Tally follows him out. This is going to be close, but it looks like they're going to come out ahead of Baker.
Baker gets underneath Blake Fitz now. We really would have hoped that Fitz would have pitted at the end of this lap, but it doesn't matter now. They're all back together. Benefield, Talliansich, Loxton, long stop? Question mark? Yes. Must have overshot his pit box.
Yeah, looks like he did, yeah. Like, the actual pit stop time wasn't too far out of the ordinary, but he overshot it by just a tiny bit and had to reverse it. He also got a slowdown as well, we're hearing, so that's far from ideal for the 209. So ultimately, that has put Ewan Baker into a provisional, effective podium position, and he's got those tyres heated up. Meanwhile, this is Loxton getting the slowdown right there. Yep, little too far over the grass on the inside there at turn 4. Here comes Baker on Talliansich. Yeah, you're right. This has been good from Baker. He's got those tyres heated up very quickly, and it's actually pressuring Talliansich nicely. Seems like Benefield driving away from them at the moment. Is there going to be a change here between the two Mustangs up the front? Seems like the Mustang is the more popular car choice for those at the front in this split.
I wonder Triple Eight making the change.
Rob Tomei in the pit lane. Next driver to get that compulsory pit stop out of the way. And he'll come out probably just outside the top 20, it seems. Replay of Brett Loxton overshooting his box, meanwhile. Looks like he's in, but it was a matter of like a quarter of a meter, probably.
And it looks like it took him a moment to realise he'd done it, too. Like, he's sitting there like, hello? Why is the fuel not going in? Oh, click, neutral, click, reverse gear, clutch, throttle, brake. All right, we're in the box now. All right, back in the first gear. Like, you see exactly how his stop time was the same, but he lost 4 seconds in the lane right there, and so he's got work to do.
It's a horrible feeling. I've done it many a time, just overshooting by a tiny bit when you thought you'd nailed it, and that's your podium gone. Well, Loxton making short work of Jake Edwards there. Edwards has yet to pit there, so big pace difference, old tyres versus new. And all things considered, Loxton hasn't lost all that much time to the top 3. There is still a chance for him to make that time up. He's only going to have 8 laps to do it, and a safety car isn't looking very likely at this stage.
Good work, good work. 8 laps to go. Dangle that one out there. Nice, nice. Adam Hughes, Tyler Blackburn, Matthew Clark. Yeah, you're getting the last of the pit stops. These are some people who, held it out, hoping that there might be a safety car for them, or held it out there thinking that if everyone else pitted early, they'd get a little bit of clear track. But now you're starting to see, all right, it's about time to make that stop, because you're getting into serious undercut territory. That's where everyone is around the track. I'd put my lawn chair on the beach near turn 2. Nice little swimming lake there inside the island.
Yeah, it certainly is. Lovely location of this circuit in the heart of the city of Montreal on the St. Lawrence River. On board here with the Jinx Shifters Mustang. That's Loxton making the move on Blake Fitzpatrick there. Fitzpatrick, one of only 4 cars that has yet to visit the pit lane here. And we saw on the track map tracker that Kobe Jones and Tyson Broad still going nicely up the front there. It looks like they are both coming in now, so we should expect Blake Fitzpatrick and Jake Edwards to follow them in here.
It also comes down to how much fuel did you start the race with at this point as well. You might be reaching the end of how far you can go, and you know you're going to try to maybe match your fuel drop to your 4 tyre change time, and that affects how much fuel you look to start the race with. So that's basically the limit of everyone by the looks of it now.
Yeah, it does look like it. Out of the pits they come. And the field is just about cleansed. Oh, hello. Kobe Jones has pulled an absolute blinder on the strategy there.
6-second stop. Everyone else has a 10-second stop. So has he started with more fuel on board or something?
Yeah, it looks like that might be the case there.
Has he stopped being, legal as far as it's concerned? Because why would everyone else have a 10-second stop and Kobe Jones have a 6-second stop?
Because they would take tyres. The tyres take 10 seconds to change if you're doing all 4, and it takes the same amount of time to change just 2 tyres as it does to change all 4. At least that's how it was with Gen 2. I don't think it's all that different for Gen 3. So is there a chance here that Kobe Jones might have wanted to get on the podium? Remember, the top 3 in Split 2 get that golden ticket to start in Split 1 later on in the night. Maybe he's decided to throw caution to the wind and go no tyres. What?
I'm trying to see if anyone else has done the same strategy, and I think 17th place William Brown, maybe Scott Gamble and Angus Lawford, some cars that were way out of position as it was already anyway. Tyson Broad looks like he might have done the same. That's why Blake Fitz was still all over Tyson Broad, because Broad doesn't have new tyres maybe.
This is really odd. I'm not sure what's going on here, and I think
Foggy, super cold track. Maybe they're thinking that the tyre delta's not that bad, and it's a street circuit where maybe it's a little hard to pass, so the track position ends up being king, and you can defend a half a second to 1 second a lap tyre delta in a case like this.
I think we'll have to get some confirmation from race control about the specific rule around tyres, because for the longest time it was the compulsory pit stop, you have to take tyres in. But the compulsory pit stop now is only, you just have to go up on the jacks and back down. You don't have to take fuel and tyres if you don't need to. You just got to stop in the box for how long it takes, and then you're away. So, yeah, I think we can confirm it there. Kobe Jones and Tyson Broad have decided to go tyre-free in this race. That means that they're going to be at a disadvantage on pace here, but I mean, you only have to look at the screen to see that Kobe Jones is keeping Ewan Baker at bay very nicely.
Keep an eye on Baker here, because I wonder if he hasn't short-fueled or something. So that's decent traction there. It's a little wiggly from Kobe Jones, but that's what these cars look like on throttle. Is there's a bit of wiggle to it. Is he going to go for a coast at the end of the casino straight?
Yeah, this is the question.
Not really.
Okay.
Ooh, a whole bunch more slowdown penalties out there for Jake Edwards, Seb Tixia, and Jamie Dyke.
Yeah.
It's never ending.
Certainly. We've got many, many drivers who have suffered quite a bit in this race, but we're only going to have 5 laps remaining in this race. Can Ewan Baker get back onto the podium spot here? take that opportunity to start and split one away from Kobe Jones. What a strategy that has been deployed there by Jones, by Tyson Broad as well.
The old Lightning McQueen.
Yeah.
Fuel, no tyres.
Yeah, would it work out? Almost didn't work out for Lightning himself.
No, but then he learnt a valuable lesson about friendship, family, and teamwork, and it made him a better racing car.
It certainly did. And
Ka-chow!
Yeah, ka-chow indeed.
So how is Ewan Baker going to set this one up? Because now I think he's on Kobe Jones. Often with the older tyres, you know, you take your run down the lane, you put the fuel in, and in that moment there's sort of 30, 40 seconds where you're not working the tyres, they cool off a little bit. Even an old set comes back to you a little bit with the pit stop. But then you're back out on the track, the heat builds up into them again, and now maybe you start feeling, you know, how old they are compared to the 6-lap old set that Ewan Baker has got on.
That's entirely possible. Meanwhile, a bit further back, William Sapstead with Scott Mackay behind him. Adam Hughes in pursuit in the Mustang as well. Mackay's got to slow down there. Falling back into 13th place. Bring him under pressure from Tyler Blackburn, who's up only 2 places, a bit wide there in turn 2 as well. Had to let Tyler Blackburn go. The slowdown was still not clear. Meanwhile, Adam Hughes has gotten by William Sapstead.
Sapstead's got to slow down.
Yeah, he picked up one in turn 1, I think.
They're taking ages to clear him, and you see this for Scott Mackay. You know, he's carried the slowdown into turns 1 and 2, and it's been even more costly than if he'd rolled out earlier on the straight, and same for Sapstead there. The strategy for giving back these extremely aggressive slowdown penalties is not quite working.
Yeah, certainly isn't. Well, 2 men that have avoided the slowdowns have been our top 2 there. Benefield and Taliancic still as close as they've ever been here. And Tally running about a 1/10 of a second faster than Benefield on the last lap. So there's a lot of potential for a move here in the final couple of laps. Jones and Baker ever closer as well. They're almost bumper to bumper on the way out of the final chicane. This is going to be a great finish.
Blake Fitz pits. He's the last car to do so. Having gone out there 20 laps. Last lap, fastest car inside of the top 5 was 5th place Brett Loxton. This is a replay I wanted because I saw it out of the corner of my eye. This is Matt Pluck, I think.
A little bit deep on the brakes at the hairpin, and he tries to turn in, but the rear end is just not with him. Backwards entry. Certainly looks spectacular. Gets back going, but maybe pride and potential race position hurt just a little.
An interesting entry. So, Jones still keeping Baker behind. Seems like it's only just. Brett Loxton's found his rhythm and his mojo again. Daniel Benefield's got to slow down. Race leader's got to slow down.
Oh, that's not ideal. Taliancic maybe try to find a way through, but Benefield is not giving up the racing line. Oh, this is going to be tight. Will Benefield be able to clear the slowdown without losing the spot here? Oh, he's going to have to go defensive into the final chicane. No such move from Taliancic. That's interesting. This is very interesting. Benefield still hasn't cleared that slowdown. He's going super slow to the final chicane, and here comes Ewan Baker and Kobe Jones. He's absolutely compressed the top 5. Brett Loxton's back in it now too.
So Taliancic is going to look to go around the outside of 1 to keep his nose in for the hairpin at 2, but he can't do it. They're all packed up at the apex, but then Benefield runs it wide. Now Taliancic is going to have the inside, and he's got his nose in front.
Oh, side by side on the way into this chicane. I wouldn't want to be on the outside like Benefield is. He's going to force the issue. A little bit of clattering of fenders there. And Talyancic now stands a chance of losing second place to Kobe Jones. Kobe's come out of nowhere here to be a factor for victory. Oh, but he's going to have to leave space for Tally on the inside there. It allows Benefield to run away with it.
Talyancic had such a great opportunity there, but Benefield, the way he's given up at that slowdown, very tactical, but not especially clean.
Oh. Easy, easy, easy. Ewan Baker, can he get back onto the podium here? With Brett Loxton now trying to find a way past him in the hairpin. Oh, that's a big slide there from Loxton. He caught the grass and he sends Kobe Jones wide and off the podium. Ewan Baker's back in third.
Jeez Louise, these last 3 laps gone absolutely insane. It's going to be the white flag out of the final chicane this time on the pit straight. Daniel Benefield's in front, but he boxed them all up. He was parking it, perhaps unnecessarily, on the apex is there to give it up, and that's just a plain mistake from Brett Loxton. He's taken out Kobe Jones.
Oh, he certainly has. Oh, man. Well, the final lap has officially begun here. Is there any chance at all for Jones to find his way back onto the podium here as Talyancic is catching up to Benefield again? He's lost his chance to really fight for it on the previous lap, but there's one more problem for Benefield. If Tally can channel the red mist, then he might have half a chance at it. This has been a classic V8SCOPS Split 2 race. Remember, the top 3 on the cards here for doing Split 1 later on in the night, and I think Kobe Jones might be fancying a chance at this. Side by side with Baker, he's going to have to outbrake him at turn 8 and 9, but Baker is a bit later on the brakes, has to give room to Jones, who slides it through the corner. That's the no tyre penalty right there. No grip on the way into the
Slow
turn.
down for Loxton. Brett Loxton got a slowdown out of that. Somehow Ewan Baker didn't. So this could cost Brett Loxton to Tyson Broad, who's suddenly going to sneak into the top 5. 4/10 of a second between the leaders.
Runs deep at the hairpin though. Looks like the no tyre strategy for Broad and Jones absolutely falls apart there on the final lap. No grip left in those tyres, but they gave it a red hot go of it. Michael Talyancic versus Daniel Benefield coming through the final corner, but there's nothing Tally will be able to do. Benefield serving that slowdown, you'd say perfectly, and preserves victory. Daniel Benefield wins Split 2 at Montreal.
And after all of that, it's Benefield, Talyancic, Baker, the top 3 on the podium, exactly as we would have predicted 5 laps ago.
Oh, actually, race control might have something to say to that. Talyancic, I think, may be reporting that as potential blocking through the final couple of corners, so that could change the result. It's still not over there. The number 96, William Brown there gets a slowdown out of the final chicane, and well, he's going to lose out quite a bit. Oh no, that is heartbreaking there for William Brown. He'll finish in 24th place when he was solidly fighting for potentially a top 16 position there. Well then, bit to talk about here coming out of the Split 2 race. Controversial slowdown serving there from Benefield. Obviously, I did say it was perfect a few moments ago, but that's purely from an entertainment perspective. I don't know if it was in the rules. And that's exactly what race control are trying to determine right now. Well, in any case, this is how they finished on track. Benefield 4/10 ahead of Talyancic.
Go through this and I'll fire some thoughts off later.
All right, no problem. Ewan Baker rounding out the podium there with Loxton and Broad top 5. Michael Whiting getting into 6th spot, 14 places gained. Absolutely nailed the strategy there. Justin Wallace up 11 places too. Kenneth Latta still preserves a top 10 finish, with Adam Hughes getting into the top 10 after starting 24th place. William Sapstead, meanwhile, finishes in 10th place, up 9 spots. Well done to him. Blackburn finishes 11th ahead of Mackay, Jones, Dyke and Pepperell. Fitzpatrick, Mole, Edwards, Lawford and Gamble round out your top 20. Plenty of problems for all of these drivers. Fortunately, they got to the finish at least. Tixier started from the pits. He ends up finishing 21st in the end. What could have been for the man who briefly held the fastest lap of the race. Josh Drage finishes 22nd ahead of Ryan Mueller. William Brown with that slowdown out of the final corner all the way down to 24th place. Matthew Pluck in 25th. Jared Lamprey, Troy Stone Street, Marco Numella, Rob Tomei and Ben Smith rounding out your top 30. And then only one more car really to talk about. It's Paul Young. He had to retire from the race. It looks like those technical issues he was suffering at the start were continuing after that.
Well, see, there's what's the etiquette of giving up a slowdown, and there's what's the rules of giving up a slowdown. And I think we're about to find out where what Daniel Benefield did falls between those two, because it would be, a justifiable penalty to brake check someone in a straight line. So what about, slowing up 30, 40, 50 k's an hour through a corner? Is that a brake check? Is that fair? Let's take a look. So at this point, Daniel Benefield is carrying a slow down penalty. He's on the racing line on the way through the hairpin. He's slow getting to power, trying to block in Talyancic behind while giving up that time down the straight. He thinks that'll clear it, but it hasn't. At this point, there is still a slowdown penalty hanging in for Daniel Benefield. He pulls off the racing line. He cracks the throttle a little bit. Talyancic cracks the throttle a little bit. Still there for Benefield. And that's why here, he just absolutely parks it in the final chicane when Talyancic can't carry his speed and go around. Now it's clear for Benefield, and he's back on the defense.
Yeah, that's almost safety car speeds, actually, that they were going through the final corner there. And it compressed the entire top 5, as we were aware. I think Talyancic, there probably wouldn't have been too many complaints if he'd actually managed to get through here, but Benefield was able to hold station around the outside and force him wide there. So, yeah, I understand why Talyancic would be unhappy with what Benefield did. I'd be unhappy too. From Benefield's perspective, well, again, we're not entirely clear on whether or not that truly constituted blocking. We'll get race control's decision very soon.
Would you like some numbers?
Yeah, sure.
So on the lap in question, Benefield's minimum speed through the chicane was 70 k's an hour. The lap after, it was 112.
Yeah, okay. So that is, as you said, nearly 50 k's an hour down through the turn there. This is the view on board from Kobe Jones. Remember, he was fighting with Ewan Baker at this stage, and then he sees them all the way through the chicane. Massive gains of time, and it looked like Jones had to back out of it a bit as well. So it wasn't just Talyancic that was affected by Benefield trying to clear the slowdown and stay ahead.
It's always, where is the line? And if you're low stakes driving some official racing, the polite thing to do when you have a slowdown is pull off the racing line, clear it, get back on the racing line. Now, as for this, you're racing as hard as you can within the rules. You're trying to find where's that line of, impeding, blocking, brake checking, whatever, in the rules. And trying to toe that line within the rules as they're written and as they'll be enforced. So, I've seen dirtier, more reckless, more stupid moves than what we're seeing here, but it's for the race win, and you're like, gee, is that all right? And it's not for us to answer, but it's clear that he's gone right up against the limit of what's fair, what's sporting, and what's legal in pursuit of this race win.
Yeah, Benefield's always been a driver that pushes the rules to their maximum, and is one of those drivers that sort of flirts on the edge of what is legal, because he's just that kind of competitor. But you can see how much of an effect that it had. The entire top 5 together, like it's lap 1 there at the start of one of the final laps of this race. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get a decision from race control soon about that, but for now we're going to step aside very briefly. We're going to be bringing split one action to you very shortly here on SimSpeed TV. You're watching round one of the V8SCOPS season here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV, round 1 of V8 SCOPS for 2025 in Montreal. Bit of a controversial start to the night, with race control still investigating potential blocking for Daniel Benefield at the end of the Split 2 race. But as they still work on that decision, we can start to bring you that Split 1 action. Currently in practice for the time being, but a little bit of a refresher on how things are yet to go for this fantastic season. We went through the schedule already at the top of the broadcast. We're going to take another look at it now. We're here on March the 2nd for the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. When we hop over to another French-speaking part of the world, and that's France, where the language comes from. Circuit de Nevers-Manicourt for round 2, and then we go to a classic, David, Watkins Glen International, the Cup layout, making its return. And man, that's going to be a fun time for sure.
Yep, I got my Watkins Glen International stubby holder right here, so I'm ready. And hopefully we're all ready. 200-kilometer races is the perfect format for that layout of the circuit as well. It's the short configuration of the circuit. It's 2 short, sharp races, 250 kilometers on Sebring International Raceway. That's exciting too. Straight Grand Prix at Belle Isle, where the walls are even closer than they are around here. Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, high speeds on the back straight. The Hockenheim Ring with 75 150 kilometer layout of the format. Navarra in brackets speed. That's an interesting one. Okayama we're plenty familiar with, and Motegi as well, so a little Japanese swing there, and then it's all into our favorite Australian racing circuits for the enduro season of Phillip Island, Mount Panorama and Sandown.
Yeah, indeed, Sandown 500 to end off the season. Looking forward to the Enduro Cup as per usual, but it's going to be a long wait. A fun wait, though, as we make our way through this fantastic season. The top 10 in points from last season, certainly an interesting one, and there's been a few big changes since this championship was finalized. James Scott and I believe Dylan Rudd no longer a part of Lobs Esports. There was a big change to that team's lineup, seemingly out of nowhere late on in the year. But it was a great season from Zach Rattray White for Vermilion Esports. Really came to the fore in 2024. Rehan Leonage, another driver who we're expecting big things from this season. He certainly set the timing screens alight last year, as he did in the years previous too. And Blake Warboys, he's always a factor there, getting 5th place. A lot of these results here, David, through sheer consistency. You know, Chris Coxhead, he wasn't here for the first few rounds of the season last year, but getting a top 8 in the championship, he came in and he was just on it.
Yeah, and it's going to be, you know, a whole year-long situation as well. We've seen the kind of different tracks you go to, the different formats. So consistency across all of those are super important if you're going to end up inside of the top 10, and indeed if you're going to try to challenge for the championship in 2025.
Indeed. And there's going to be a few new challenges, a few old challenges as well for that title. We can obviously welcome Trans-Tasman Racing back into the fold once more. Their only representative was Brady Myers for a while in this championship. Chiefs ESC is the new team for James Scott, the reigning champion of this series. Chiefs Esports Club is what I'm told that acronym stands for there. And certainly a lovely looking machine there. Got Aussie Broadband on the side of the car. I'm a fan of that. They're my ISP, so let's see what they can do from here. Apparently Aussie Broadband a provider for many in the sim racing community, including our producer Jay Kennedy.
No, they're not our SimSpeed provider unless there's, you know, cash. You know, we're unaffiliated at the moment.
Yes, we are. Hashtag not a sponsor.
But they could be SimSpeed's provider.
Hint, Aussie Broadband. Drop us a line. In any case.
Figuratively or literally, because they could drop you a line.
I only just realised that. God. Oh, boy. Well, back to drivers making returns for this season. We saw Jake Burton for Trans-Tasman Racing. Good to see him back there. Job Stewart, now part of Evolution Racing Team. Was a member of Synergy Sim Racing for a while. Emily Jones is back in the fold as well for Trans-Tasman Racing. It's great to see Emery back amongst it here in V8SCOPS. Looking forward to seeing what times she can put down. Jake Maloney on a Trans-Tasman Racing as well, back there in the Mustang. Got used to seeing him in a Commodore and a Mustang in equal measure over the last couple of years, but he is back with Ford. And there's Stenny Kurt Stenberg, the most experienced driver in V8SCOPS history. He's been there for the most rounds of anyone else, and he is still here for Gen 3, still leaning over the wheel, as he is wont to do from his days racing on a stool.
It's cinema, that. So it's a warm-up session at the moment. We're 16th, and to give us a little bit of an idea of times in this before they then go into qualifying in the 46-lap, 200-kilometre race.
Oh, Albert as well for Evolution Racing Team. Bo was a bit of a free agent over the last few years. He started with Evolution Racing Team more or less, or at least when he started really making waves, and then moving to Altus Esports, the team that split off from ERT, and then he went his own way for a bit. Came back to ERT as an endurance co-driver last year, and it seems he's back with the team on a more or less full-time basis. It's always awesome to see Bo out there strutting his stuff. We shall see exactly how well he stacks up here in the Gen 3s against the likes of Blake Warboys here in the WKP and K&B Sim Sports Warboys Motorsports Mustang, the number 63, 5th place in the championship last season, and Warboys has always been a factor for victory. So we shall see how he does this year. It looks like we've just gotten some news here regarding the Split 2 winner here, Daniel Benefield. He has been given a 5-second time penalty by race control. And same for Brett Loxton as well. The 209 had contact with the number 25. I believe that was Tyson Broad there. So basically that alters the Split 2 result. Benefield back to 3rd place. Taliancic the winner, and Ewan Baker in 2nd. What that does mean is Benefield still gets the golden ticket to race in Split 1.
He is so lucky that Brett Loxton took out Kobe Jones between 4th and 5th, to be honest, because it was so close amongst that top 5. He thought any penalty for anyone would knock them out of the podium spots, but then it spread out a little bit on the very, very final lap. So Ewan Baker goes up to Split 1 as well.
Yeah, the 25 is Kobe Jones. I made that error. I forgot that Tyson Broad races with the number 27, and I should know that because I've been commentating on him for quite a few years at this point. But you know, my brain is a sieve sometimes with a couple of large holes that appear and disappear every so often. I have made my peace with that, and so should all of you watching this broadcast. In any case, Michael Taliancic out there now classed as Split 2 winner for the first round of the season. And he'll get the opportunity to gain extra points here in Split 1. Job Stewart, meanwhile, to the top in the last 5 minutes of practice. Now, Job here topped pre-qualifying for Evolution Racing Team. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Job certainly has a lot of pedigree. He's raced in the real world in Super 3 and also competed in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, where he certainly made himself a factor. We've obviously known him in the past for his domination of the AOG Porsche Cup as well. So back in the supercar for this. And looks like he has found quite a turn of pace in these cars in the Gen 3 era.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this practice session thinking, what's everyone doing with it? Because everyone's out there. Obviously, we've already had pre-qualifying. Everyone's, worked on their setups, worked on their single lap pace, all of that just to get into this race. And so again, I've got my eyes on who's got slowdown penalties. And I think there's a lot of drivers out there just really trying to acclimate themselves with how much of these curves can you take here in the final chicane. The other one that seemed to be throwing up a couple of slowdown penalties was at, I think that's turns 7 and 8, just before the hairpin. That was the other one where people are getting slowdown penalties, just trying to cut a little bit too much of the curb. And, in a GT3 car or a single-seater or anything like that, you don't want to get too much of these curves, so it's not so much of a problem. This is a car that is capable of taking a lot more curb than the track limits are set for.
Yeah, indeed. And what that brings into consideration is the lap around here in a supercar is one where you need to use the curbs to get those quick times. But there's always that matter of how far do you push it. I mean, the limits are pretty easy to see, don't get all of your car's wheels off those red and white curbs. That's basically what the limits are. But with how leery these cars can be, how heavy they are, how slow to respond they can sometimes be, how much the rear tires spin up on the exit and threaten to send the car sideways, and you straighten up the wheel a little earlier to try and compensate. It can be very hard to nail that line lap after lap.
There's a few drivers also testing how quickly you have to give up the slowdown when you get one. Ryan Jones, Dylan O'Shea, a few others with some black flags. Warren Phillips picking up slowdown penalty as you look at Leonage testing where the limits are at as well. Zach Rattray White's testing where the limits are at. Everyone wants to know where that line is so that lap after lap for 46 laps, and even in qualifying, perhaps even more so in qualifying, they can run up to that limit, jump as much as possible, but not too much.
Sam Blacklock also joining us here now for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport. He was part of the former ERT, then Altus crew, and well, he's certainly done very well for himself, being presence off the track in the former Sam Blacklock media, which is on the window banners for all the cars this season. He is driving now in that fold for Orbit Drop Bear. Yet another returning driver, and it's been a very long time since we've seen this guy. Rock Salmon for Trans-Tasman Racing. Got his first V8SCOPS win many years ago at Mosport, and it was shortly after the dynamic track system was introduced. I've also been corrected once again by Tom Wilkinson. I completely forgot that Sam Blacklock was initially with Trans-Tasman Racing. There is a lot on my mind for this first round of the season, everybody. Please forgive me. Thinking about the long history of this championship and where drivers have been, sometimes you do get things wrong. But it's good to see Brock Salmon back out there in any case. Would love to see what a few years out of the saddle does to a man at Trans-Tasman Racing. Well, here we go then. Qualifying officially underway. And we're once again doing split qualifying this season. A 35-minute session, 30 of which will be reserved for track action. The groups are split on pre-qualifying times. 15 minutes each for the drivers in the back half of the field, and then the drivers in the front half. A 5-minute break in between. Ahead of a 46-lap race with 2 compulsory pit stops and 90% fuel tank restrictions, so you will have to get fuel at some point. Between laps 2 and 45 is when you can take that stop. But for now, it's all about the drivers versus the track. Who can get the fastest time here in the initial run through of this session. Leading the way out of the pits was Byron Phillips in the number 69 here for Eclipse Sim Sports. Good to see Eclipse back out here too, and I gotta say, their livery suits the Camaro more than I've seen it suit any other car.
Oh, it went all right on their cars in the OSR Bathurst 12-hour, I'd say.
It did.
It was all right on an Acura, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was, but I don't know. There's something about the chunky proportions of the Camaro that just makes that paint job work.
Got a bit of chonk to it. Now, track conditions. From split 2 to now, the track's heated up. You know, the fog's gone away. There's still a bit of cloud around, but the sun seems to be getting through, so 27 degrees Celsius on the track. It is a little bit warmer as they come around to start the first bracket of flying laps. 11 kilometers from the northwest. Very low humidity is odd with that amount of cloud around, and that's gone backwards a little bit through turn 1. Then get to a late apex and throttle through turn 2, bit of wheel spin there. I'm not sure the tyre's all there just yet for Byron Phillips, if I'm honest with you.
No, I'd agree. He had to have a couple of goes at it for turn 1, rear sliding on the way in, and then he scrubbed the fronts through turn 2, then tried to get on the power to rotate it, and it just broke free again. Well, we'll see what Byron will be able to do here as he finds his way out of turn 7. It's so hard to get the power down in this section of the circuit because that right-hander opens up onto the straight. It is possible to get on the power fully, but you need to manage the steering. Don't put too much angle into those fronts, otherwise the car will snap on you on full throttle and there'll be very little you can do to recover it. First lap of V8SCOPS qualifying for 2025 will belong to Byron Phillips potentially. We'll see if he commits to the end of this one, or if that mishap at turns 1 and 2 was not to his liking. All alone on circuit, with some cars a few seconds back, but no one in front of him. No slipstream assistance. See how he attacks the final corners here, or if he decides to attack pit entry. Looks like he braked at the usual braking point there. Bang and bang over the curbs, and the car actually looked quite stable there over the white anti-cuts. Across the line he will come. First qualifying lap of 2025, 1:37.0 for Byron Phillips. Mighty fast indeed. Dylan Rudd immediately beats it at 36.5. O'Shea goes second fastest. Teo Sorono fourth, then fifth fastest as Ewan Baker and Kurt Stenberg put their times in to get second and fourth. Michael Taliancic, split 2 winner, fifth for the time being.
So we followed along there with the lap time from Byron Phillips. It's quite quickly being eclipsed by quite a few others, and at the same time things happened like Tao Sorono has been spun around at the outside of turn 2, and Jordan Ross had an issue of some kind that saw him end up in the wall. Ryan Jones got a slowdown penalty on his first flying lap there, so I think he didn't score a lap that counted. And after all of that, there are only 12 cars there from the first half that have a lap time that counted, so I think about 5 have missed out.
So here's Sorono in the Vermilion car. Blacklock behind in the orbit drop there, and oh dear, little bit deep in turn 1 for Blacklock, and should surprise no one to learn that cars don't slow down particularly well on the grass.
No, so now he's going to try to cut out of the way. There's some other cars that have got 2 flying laps right now. So out on the circuit, but with no valid time yet. Adam Briggs, Jordan Ross, Chris Coxhead, Darren Lobb, Sam Blacklock, Ryan Jones, and Seth Brown. So that surprises me. If there was 1 or 2 that missed out on setting a time, I'd be like, okay. But this is, for example, why Jordan Ross's flying lap didn't count. We're about to see.
On the brakes for the chicane, and apparently it happened on exit. He was fine over the curbs, but a little snap, and then, oh dear, into the wall. And unfortunate there for Synergy, 143. Usually a pretty consistent competitor is Jordan, so hopefully he gets it together on his next run. Meanwhile, Seth Brown, new provisional pole sitter here. The Camaro is looking mighty fast. 136.5 is the fastest time at the moment. That's what everyone will be looking to beat. And the top four at the moment within a tenth of a second. Only 800ths in it.
Trying to keep an eye on the run plan for everyone here. You know, is it F1 style outlap, one flying lap, put a new set of tyres on, or is anyone sort of trying to do 2 build laps? What's going on with that? So most cars went out, did a flying lap, and then have come back in. Exceptions are Seth Brown, Dylan O'Shea, and Ewan Baker is doing something, and Adam Briggs will be one of the first to come around to attack here. I think he's had an issue maybe on his previous flying lap, aborted it, therefore he's 1 lap ahead of everyone on trying to make a second run.
Well, here comes Briggsy into turn 1. Once again, it seems like when you get that first flying lap underway, the rear end doesn't quite stick like you want it to, and Briggs is still struggling a little bit as well with power application too out of the first couple of corners. So hopefully the tyres are up to temp here. He does cut the grass a bit there, but looks like that lap should still be legal. You can take quite a bit out of the inside of turn 4 there, though we did see a slowdown penalty come from a couple of drivers who overcooked it slightly in split 2. On the power out of turn 6, past those F1 DRS boards, and this is looking like a clean lap from Briggs thus far. Looking nice and stable under brakes now that the tyres are all warmed up and the car balances with him. Barely a hint of oversteer on the exit of the chicane. We'll see how he goes on the exit of the hairpin.
Took a line through 8 and 9 there that really sort of opened up turn 9, whereas some of them are so aggressive across the turn 8 apex trying to carry speed in. This is clearly aiming for a clean lap rather than a ragged but potentially 1/10 faster lap for Briggs. He's got nothing on the board just yet, so he's trying to make sure that this one counts, because I think his last one didn't. So that's the goal for Adam Briggs. It is mostly cloudy. The clouds coming and going. I said 27 degrees track temperature not long ago, maybe just 4 minutes ago. It's dropped to 25 now. So what the weather does this group versus group number 2 could be interesting. One group's track conditions will be quicker than the others, but by how much, and does it really have much effect? We'll wait and see.
We shall. Briggs running a time good enough for P6 there. That was a solid run from the 07-2. Here comes Ryan Jones. Keeping an eye out for any improvements here from the number 11, who also doesn't have a time on the board just yet, but comes across the line now for a 138.7, and ultimately it looks like that one didn't count either. So Jones, not a stranger to the commentary box here at SimSpeed, having a bit of trouble out there behind the wheel.
Yeah, so it's just Sam Blacklock and Ryan Jones without a time now. A few of the others in this group that didn't have a time have now gone and put one in, like likes of Adam Briggs as well, and that time sticks for Sam Blacklock to send him to 11th. So Jones is all alones now without
quite count for an improvement there. It seems like it might have been a oh no, it did count, just was a little bit off there. So see what Chastity can do to improve going forward. Jordan Ross, meanwhile, we saw him put a time in earlier, 136.6. This is what it was like for Chastity there. Not the closest I've seen going to the wall in the Wall of Champions, but certainly a little bit too much sliding from the rear. Jordan Ross makes his way back into the lane. No further time from him for the moment anyway. Ewan Baker, 3rd place in split 2. He's going to come back in and get those tyres changed. Seth Brown has a P1 to maintain, and that car is beautiful and flat over the curbs there. I would have expected it to be a bit more bouncy there, but so the suspension is working out nicely for him. This is the start of another lap for him.
Yeah, so he's had an out lap. That was a flying lap. And so for Seth Brown, either this is another flying lap or this ends up being an in lap. So when he crosses the first sector, we'll have some idea. The first sector needs to be quicker than a 27.6 for it to be an improvement. And line is up here somewhere in a 27.6, so he matches it. This could be another good lap if the tyres hold on for Seth Brown to the end of it. Tiny bit of traffic in front of him.
Just a little,
What's happening with that?
Yeah, it seems like there's enough of a gap ahead that he might be able to use it for a bit of slipstream. Have to keep an eye out for that. It's Dylan O'Shea that's up ahead of him, and O'Shea, 4th in qualifying at the moment. Certainly a man that you'd expect to be up the top on lap time.
10th down on the PB through the middle sector there for Seth Brown, so he needs the toe to give him an extra 10th or 2 for free on the back straight here. I tell you what, he might be placed well for it. He might be placed okay for it, and I think last lap he backed out of it to preserve the tyres, so the one prep lap might be the way to go. This is giving him a bit of speed in 6th gear. Look at that, almost 280 k's an hour.
Yeah, and Dylan O'Shea lets him go. Look at that, bouncing over the curbs beautifully.
No, not beautifully. Slowdown penalty is not beautifully bouncing over the curbs.
Well, it's tough to tell from the onboard camera. That's my defense anyway. Tally in 6th for the time being, and see if there's it doesn't look like this lap is going to be an improvement. 32.6 in sector 1. This might be an out lap that we're seeing from Tally. Yeah, it looks like it is. So we'll be able to potentially find a way through into the top 5 from here. Aerial view of what I missed looking at Seth Brown's onboard into the final chicane then. Did it happen at the first or second apex? Looks like it. Oh no, it wasn't the first.
Because on board it looked like he understeered at the first apex. It didn't turn in, and then at the second apex, that's it. There.
Oh, yeah.
Look at him bouncing beautifully across that curb, Reese.
Yes, well, look, I think it's an objectively beautiful picture, but it didn't result in a beautiful lap time. It in fact resulted in no lap time.
And then he didn't give up the slowdown, and now he's got a black flag. I guess that probably resets when he goes in a pit lane and puts a new set of tyres on, but it's still, yeah, a bit odd. Look at the margin between himself and Dylan Rudd for the top of this group as well. It is 0.02 of a second. And then you think, what does 0.2 of a second do from Seth Brown? Well, there's 8 cars within 12 hundredths of pole at the moment.
Righto. Entering the final.
Yeah, I'm sure this one's going to go up for Talyancic, but Jordan Ross is on a time that could improve him, and it does, to 4th.
Yeah, that is a big improvement for Ross. Nicely done. Next driver to get into the 36.5 second bracket, and that means that now the top 6 are only covered by about 600ths of a second. Clattering over the curbs there for Talyancic. Might have pushed that one a bit too far, and he has. It's a slowdown penalty for Talyancic out of the final corner as Kurt Stenberg goes to the top. First driver into the 36.4s. Steady making that Camaro work.
Ludicrous toe in the final sector, and then a good run through the final chicane. So he's picked up most of that time in his final sector, which is 38.8, compares to 2 or 3 tenths quicker than some of the others. So I think Stenberg might have found himself a nice toe, but the first and second sectors were tidy to be in that position as well. It's so close, and this is only half of the cars with the first group. I think the top of the totem could look even closer once that second group come around. The sun's coming back out, the track temperature's coming back up as well.
Yeah, I'll certainly define a few things here in the last 6 minutes or so.
Checkered flag
of this qualifying session. Okay, yes, I got my times mixed up there. It is in fact 15 minutes done for that first session of qualifying, and now we wait for the drivers who still have laps yet to finish, one of them being Ryan Jones here. Tips it in the DPR machine across the line, going to shorten the run as much as he can. And it's a 1:36.7 for Jones. That'll put him up from 18th to 12th. An impressive improvement. O'Shea, meanwhile, 1:37.0. And that's not going to be...
Puts the top 8 cars within just 1/10 of a second now. So it is so close up the top. You can see it on the timing column on screen. You can see it at the live timing link linked to just about everywhere, wherever you may be watching, especially in the YouTube chat. And so that is just such a ludicrously competitive session so far.
Oh, no!
You got to do everything to try to get that last half a tenth, and Chastino has done everything to try to get that last half a tenth. He's going to stay 18th for the moment, and that will drop a little further when the second group come out shortly.
Oh, that's tough for James, happening at the final corner of the lap. But for now, Kurt Stenberg, top of the session in the first part of qualifying here. 0.04 of a second ahead of Seth Brown, Dylan Rudd, Blake Warboys, Ewan Baker, Jordan Ross and Teo Sorono, only 0.07 behind provisional pole position. Dylan O'Shea quite close too. This was a, as you said, some ludicrous pace in this qualifying session. Tally Ansich and Chris Coxhead rounding out the top 10. Brock Salmon getting 11th in the first part of qualifying on his return to V8SCOPS. Ryan Jones in 12th ahead of Adam Briggs and Darren Lobb. O'Reilly getting ahead of split 1 third place, Daniel Benefield. And then Sam Blacklock, James Chastaneuf and Byron Phillips are the 19 cars thus far to have set times. Now we are in our break between the two sessions, and we'll get an eye in on the fastest lap from the first part of qualifying here on board with Kurt Stenberg. And David, it all starts with setting up the exit of the chicane nicely. Stenny probably a little bit bouncy on the way out, but got a good enough exit that this first part of the lap went very nicely for him.
Yeah, and there's a good amount of clear space in front of him. That's what the qualifying groups are meant to do, is maximising the speed through the first part, tight through here, where you make a double apex of it and really just straight line for the traction. Yeah. That's an interesting line. That really is an interesting line to hold so tight through turn 2. Now bouncing over the chicanes here, where he's using all of the road. Still not too worried about any of the cars up front of us. Turn 5, holding a super tight line there, using all of the extra pavement into turn 6 here, and then turn 7. He's got a wide entry into that to also allow him to maximize the throttle off the corner. Now this straight is slightly bent, so you're looking to minimize the line all the way to the right. He's trying to keep a straight run into his braking zone here. Turn 8, turn 9, places where you can get too much curb if you're careful. He's done that well. So now it's about braking into the hairpin, and I'm pretty sure he must get a bit of a toe off the hairpin here. So yep, here we go. Getting right up close behind the drop bear car in front.
That's Blacklock, I think, that had his car in exactly the right position for Kurt Stenberg to take advantage of down the straight. And it's from about 1.5 seconds back at top speed that the draft starts to come into effect. And, well, he didn't get as much of it as I thought he would. Blacklock jumped right out of the way. So, looks to me like Stenberg might have just nailed the exit of the chicane there. Look at how smooth the car was on the exit there. Just a little bit of throttle, a little bit of slide and rotation and shortening the run to the line. And that is what a 1 minute 36.481 looks like around the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Time for an appearance from the safety car.
Think about this. We said that the top 8 were all covered by underneath a tenth of a second. You think could there have been a tenth of a second of slipstream there? Perhaps just enough that it puts him on top rather than puts him 5th, just enough that it puts him on top by 400ths instead of 100th. Safety car is going out there, and this is the cue for Group 2. Theoretically, Group 2 is the more competitive group, isn't it?
Yes, the top drivers, the top half of drivers in split 1 from pre-qualifying, getting the green flag and on their way out of the circuit. Andrew Dyson leading the charge here, but it looks like the Vermilion car of Zach Rattray White is going to be pressuring him here for top spot in the queue. Now, this is the question that you've got to ask yourself. Montreal, obviously a track where slipstream is important and it can make or break a lap here. If you're Zach Rattray White, do you stay behind Andrew Dyson, or do you try and get ahead of him and try to get your banker in clear air?
Yeah, it's hard to gauge exactly how many opportunities you're going to get as well. So is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 4 flying laps in this 15-minute bracket if you mess up one of your flying laps, you can abort it, come in early, and maybe that lets you fit 4 attempts in. So I think the first one here, you're not looking to mess about. You're looking to get your banker lap time in.
Side by side through the hairpin. I didn't expect there to be a bit of a drag race out of here in qualifying, but it looks like now...
Expect a car park before the chicane then.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Rattray White's decided, okay, I'm going to back off. Emily Jones, right behind him, is thinking, well, what do I do? I'm going to have to try and get a gap here myself. It's a tough choice, isn't it? You want to be close enough to get the slipstream, but you don't want to be so close that the car in front of you is actually compromising your lap. But the decision has to be made quickly, and it is done. So across the line we come to begin our first laps in Group 2. Andrew Dyson leading the way in the 999. New race number for him for this year in the DPR car.
Looking for 27.6 as the first sector to beat.
Yes, so keep that number in mind. The sector line comes up just after this right-hander. Try and stick tight to the wall, run out a bit wide. 27.7 in the first sector for Andrew Dyson. Already looking all right.
Middle sector of 29.9 to beat as well. So if this is about 3-4 tenths away from the best time we saw in the first group, I'd expect that, and then they'll take more risks with the curbs. They'll maybe have a better chance at warming the tyres. Obviously, you might get a bit more slipstream. So 29.9 is the number I want to see comparison to. It's just before you break into the hairpin.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're missing 1/10 from each sector relative to Kurt Stenberg's lap, and that's about right for the conditions and for the first of what will be a couple of flying laps in qualifying.
How good. Exactly half a minute in Sector 2 for Andrew Dyson as Jones spins around in the background. Not ideal for Emery. And we're hearing that there is a huge replay coming, but we'll catch Andrew Dyson finishing this lap first off. Once again, huge curb usage, but it looked legal to me. Across the line he will come. 1:36.4 quickest time from the first group, and Dyson currently 4 tenths off that, down to 18th. Rattray White putting in a time good enough for 11th spot thus far. Jake Burton immediately to the top, and well done indeed to Robbie Gibbs as well, getting into the top 10. Josh Anderson, Aussie Racing Cars champion for Trans-Tasman Racing. He held provisional pole for the briefest moment, but Job Stewart and then Rehan Leonage getting to the top.
Bunch of cars are in lane here. All aborted their time, and this is why we're going to take a look at this. This is James Scott,
reigning champion of the series. Oh, popping the engine, and that means that he couldn't make it back to the pits under his own power. By V8SCOPS rules, the no escape rule is in effect during qualifying, so if you have to pull off, request a tow, that's your session done. The reigning champion will have no qualifying time.
This is going to start at the back of a grid of 34 drivers as it stands at the moment. Now there's a handful of cars that didn't get a time completed in that first lap. James Scott obviously one of them, but Madison Down, Bo Albert, Brady Myers, Matthew Bowler, Emily Jones. We saw Jones had a spin on throttle out of the hairpin, I think.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Not an ideal start to the session for many drivers, but tell you what, it's a good day for your name to be starting with J, because we have names starting with J from 2nd through to 5th. Jeez. 2 Jakes, a Job and a Josh.
Wasn't it a bit locked up, a bit sideways on the way into the hairpin as well? Like, I think those rear tyres might have been doing something odd as well.
Yeah, it was a bit weird.
Overheated them with a slide, with a bit of rear locking on the way into the hairpin. Got that little bump on the exit and lit it up. And Albert's going to go and start a new flying lap. It's Brady Myers, I think another one of those drivers didn't get a lap time. We're just having a look at, yes, it's a slide there.
Yeah, so that, by that point, the rears would have been overheated a bit, wouldn't they?
there's a bit going on, as they say. So Bo Albert's on flying lap. He's got a whole bunch of cars around him that are on out laps. So he's got to... I think he knows where his headlight flashing button is.
I hope whatever's happening in the background there, that everyone is okay, David.
Yeah, sorry, I was just doing a little bit of cooking.
Well, Bo Albert making his way around his first lap here, and we can show you why Brady Meyer's lap didn't count. Well, clattering over the curbs and right into the outside wall. That is a 0x, and that is lap invalidated.
So 27.6 was the reference number for the first sector, so that's what Bo Albert's got. First sector good here, honestly, for him. Middle sector, maybe missing a 10th to pole. But I think this is on for the top 5 at least. I'm just gonna look. Is there any... No one's gonna try to give him a toe freely, I think. So we'll see. So long as he gets the final chicane braking and right and doesn't do the track limits any dirty, I think this could be the top 10 for Bo.
Let's have a look then. The final corners. A little bit of a grimace on his face as he exited. That's my face every millisecond I'm driving these cars. To the line, 136.3. That will put him ahead of the top time from first group and top 6 for Bo Albert and car 06. Almost poetic.
Yeah, so like I thought, not tracking for the pole, but tracking for inside of the top 10. So that's not bad. And he's just completed that lap, so he might be able to get around for 2 more. Well, there's a few others that are about to get their second, and then maybe a third. And I think, yeah, Bo's slightly ahead of everyone else's because he bailed out of his first flying lap.
Well then, Rayan Leonage currently on provisional pole on another lap with some traffic ahead of him. And that 27.7 in Sector 1 doesn't look like the fastest we've ever seen. So I think we might be seeing that mid-session phase where drivers are going to be struggling. And did he get a slowdown there? Yeah, he did.
You bet. Josh Anderson and Jake Maloney are on hot ones here as well, though. I think they're not too far separated from him. Job Stewart doing well for himself. So this is everyone really maximising their game on this lap. Track temps come down a degree, and all of them are willing to play chicken with the curves. The times are going to tumble once again at the completion of these flying laps from all of these cars.
Here we go then. Job Stewart in the slipstream of Josh Anderson. They always look so unsettled when they've got 2 wheels off the ground.
Zach Rattray White to the top, Jake Maloney to the top, Joshua Anderson to the top. Like I said, tumbling.
Yeah, absolutely. We're down to a 36-0 now in the hands of the Aussie Racing Cars champion. And Job's time that he just set there would have been P1 if he didn't get a slowdown. It would have been a 135.9. So Job Stewart's got to pull something out here.
Still some other drivers out there that haven't completed any time, let alone having a pole time retracted because of track limits. So Matthew Bowler, no time. Richard Hampstead, no time. And James Scott, of course, not going to set a time.
Yeah, not the ideal round for James Scott in his first start for his new team, Chiefs iRacing team. Chiefs, of course, an esports club of Australia, had a history of competing in League of Legends championships and expanding into sim racing. Well, sometimes it can be shaky starts for everybody. We certainly know that James Scott has the pedigree to make it work. Dylan Rudd does as well, but he hasn't re-emerged onto the circuit since his initial runnings there in the first part of qualifying. Didn't quite get the time down that he wanted. See what Madison Down can do here. Sector times aren't looking like the fastest of them all. And Job Stewart will find his way into pit lane for 1 more run potentially at pole position. Must be so frustrating for Job. He is on the verge of grabbing pole position for the first round of the season, but it's eluded him thus far. And for Emily Jones, Can she break into the top 20 is the question. 136.5 is her quickest lap in qualifying so far, and that is half a second faster than she even ran in practice. So I know that Emily, from my many years of watching her, has been, you know, a competitor that can put down lap times up there with the best on her day. See what she can do here on this lap.
Gotta worry about traffic because it's just beginning a flying lap, and she's surrounded by drivers who are on their out lap, trying to take a look at what some of the traffic looks like. So yeah, there's still a little bit around, but most of it's a few corners ahead. So hopefully no problem for Emily Jones here. Again, 27.7 is decent first sector. We were saying 27.8 okay, 27.6 is sort of the pole pace. It's 27.7. In fact, the pole pace has come down to 27.5 in the first sector, 29.8 in the second sector. So again, I think this is going to improve Emily's time if she can complete it. It's not really going to take her inside of the top 10 unless this sector was amazing. And it looked a little questionable with those curbs. You've got to straddle one on the exit of turn 9 there as well. We've got a tiny bit of traffic approaching the hairpin, and it's a tenth or two lost in the second sector. So I'm not even confident this will be an improvement for Jones at this point now.
Yeah, not ideal. A little bit of a wiggle there down the straight. Jones going to try and find her way past this traffic here, but already a little compromised on this lap. And we'll see if she commits to the very end of it. She won't. Back into the pits. There is time to get out there for one more lap, but she has to get those tires changed and get back out on the track as soon as she can. For now, Matthew Bowler out there with no time to his name just yet. This is a driver that I was expecting to have a time on the board already. Bowler, of course, a very tough competitor himself for Evolution Racing Team. Certainly knows how to wheel a Porsche 911 around. And in terms of the supercar, he's no slouch either. The lap just hasn't come to him so far.
Yeah, so this is a flying lap, and he's going to have to make it count. Otherwise, he'll start back with James Scott. But yeah, that first sector time, 27.9 again. We're looking for a 27.6 or a 27.5 if we're challenging for pole. We're looking for a 27.8 or a 27.7 if it's going to be, you know, a quick lap in the top half of the field. That's not what it is right now. The middle sector of a 29.9 is okay, but right now, as it stands, we're about 4 tenths behind the pole time. 4 tenths behind pole would put you in about 11th or 12th. Chance of a toe down the back straight here. Just subtly. So this could still go into the top 20.
Well, to the line then. Bowler with a little bit of slipstream. Looks like he's avoided the World Champions there. Not seeing any slowdown being served. It's going to be a lap in the 36s. And it puts him up to 23rd place. See, Zach Rattray White just made an improvement there too. He's gotten into 3rd, putting Madison down to 4th place. So now Madison needs to pull something out himself. I don't know if he'll be able to though. Ran Leonage trying to get further into the top 5. Myers to 4th now. 136.3 for Leonage. Not an improvement. Off his best time by a 10th, and he won't have another opportunity to improve. Now we go to Robbie Gibbs, a 27.6 in Sector 1. That's not bad.
So I think you've seen the last flying lap that a lot of the drivers are going to be able to do. It's a question now, who's still got one in the tank? Emily Jones just starting a flying lap. I think is one of the last we're going to see be able to complete a time. This is 2 flying laps on the tyres from Gibbs, so I wonder if he encountered something on the previous lap. There's a few of these cars that are still out here that I think they will have used the best of their tyres. They're just giving it one more attempt because they can. Jones is the last driver with a flying lap on new tyres.
All right, well, to the line comes Robbie Gibbs. Big old slam of dunk across the curbs there. And the 136 bracket is there. 36.3. And that will bump Gibbs up to P9. Gets into the top 10 at the checkered flag. Nicely done. Here comes Job Stewart into the pits. There will be no run at pole there. The man who could have gotten pole position were it not for a slowdown. Here comes Madison, 3-time champion of this series. And that's a lot of curb and a lot of sliding. I don't know if that lap's ultimately going to count. Across the line, he'll come to set a 36.2. And he'll stay in fifth. Emily Jones, it looks like maybe suffering a slowdown out of the final corner. So there won't be any improvement for her. She won't get into the top 20. Only missing out on it by a single thousandth of a second versus Dylan O'Shea. Man, what a session. I love qualifying in V8SCOPS. One of my favorite things to come out of V8SCOPS weekend. And the grid will very shortly be fully set, and we'll be able to go through it. Man, David, I am hyped for this first round.
Yeah, the first group that we saw out on track being so close, what that means is I think the mid-pack of this race is going to be, you know, insane. Everyone from 10th to 35th, probably about the same speed. We've got a couple of outliers up the top that we've just seen some really impressive times come along for the second group in qualifying, and that combines sets the grid for the 46 lap 200 kilometer race coming up. 2 compulsory pit stops, 90% fuel tank restriction. Compulsory pit stop window is between laps 2 and 45.
Big race yet to come here. And we have got plenty of fantastic runnings yet to come here over this 200k season opener. The session is run and done, and Josh Anderson starts on pole position. It's a Trans-Tasman lockout of the front row. How long has it been since we could say that? Jake Maloney starting alongside him. Zach Rattray White, what a performance in the Vermilion 17. Starts alongside Brady Myers on the second row. Madison Down and Rehan Leonage, 5th and 6th. 3-time champion versus a race winner that has burst onto the scene. Job Stewart starts alongside Cody Deeth, 2 competitors that have competed on the global stage of iRacing there. Robbie Gibbs and Jake Burton rounding out your top 10. Absolutely stacked.
So then there's Bo Albert in 11th place with Andrew Dyson in 12th. Behind that, Kurt Stenberg and Seth Brown 13th, 14th on the grid. Dylan Rudd and Blake Warboys here are 15th and 16th. We have Ewan Baker, one of the drivers promoted from the podium in Split 2 to the top split, qualifies 17th alongside Jordan Ross in 18th. And a tough qualifying, perhaps, at least initially, for Teo Serrano. He's qualified 19th with Dylan O'Shea in 20th.
Emily Jones just missed out on getting out into the top 20. Starts alongside Split 2 winner Michael Taliancic. In 23rd place, Matthew Bowler in the number 12. Couldn't quite get the time in that he wanted. Starting alongside Chris Coxhead, another veteran of this series. Speaking of veterans, it's been a while since we've seen Brock Salmon on a V8SCOPS grid. Starts alongside DPR's Ryan Jones on the 13th row. Adam Briggs starts alongside Darren Lobb. Synergy versus DPR there on row 14. And then Jacob O'Reilly starts alongside the 3rd place Split 2 driver of Daniel Benefield, though Benefield did cross the line in first in that earlier race. Sam Blacklock, 31st place, couldn't get the time in that he wanted, starts alongside James Chastaner for Banter Alliance Racing. And then, with no qualifying time, James Scott starting alongside Byron Phillips there. Goodness gracious me. Chiefs Esports Club going to be starting from the back row here. Richard Hamstead is taken to the grid. Did not take part in practice or qualifying. Bit of a late entry there for our inaugural series champion starting off the back. And already there is a 10-second time penalty for O'Reilly for qualifying impedance, blocking Sam Blacklock on his 8th lap. So that's not ideal there for O'Reilly.
I guess there was Sam Blacklock, but there was no Sam Blocklack.
Yeah, you could do better than that. I've heard way better from you in the past, David. That's
Okay.
we're going to have to debrief on that one. In any case, the grid timer is over now. We're about to hear the revs rise for the first round of the 2025 V8SCOPS season here at Montreal. Who gets the best run to turn one? Lights out, power down, we're away. Great start from Josh Anderson from the top spot on the grid. Maloney will fall into line behind him. Side by side for fourth place, Zach Rattray-White gets ahead of Rehan Leonage as they make their way through turn one for the first time. Clean start throughout all of the field. No shenanigans like we saw in split two, but they have to make their way through the chicanes here, find their way through. There's Job Stewart already trying to go for a move on Cody Deeth. Side by side through the chicane. They are Noah's Arking it here through the opening turns.
Yeah, too wide through the first hairpin was easy, but too wide through the chicanes gets super difficult heading into this next section here after turn 5 into turn 6. You're looking to muscle out anyone who's side by side with you, and it's led to a little bit of contact here.
Yeah, certainly has. A little bit of contact on the first lap. Black flag for jumping the start for Robbie Gibbs. That's some big news there for Robbie. Got to be gentle here as Jake Burton fights with Bo Albert for the last position in the top 10. Easy does it on your way to the hairpin. It's going to be very easy to lock up here on the first lap. You don't know where the grip's at. Your car is full of fuel for the first time. And up the inside there, I think that's James Scott potentially. No, it's Dylan Rudd that has found his way past Kurt Stenberg there in the hairpin. And there's someone spun at the back there. Looks like that's O'Reilly.
Yeah, so he's got that penalty, and now he's back at the field, having been looped around at the hairpin. Mainly single file up front, a little bit of side-by-side heading down the casino straight. Your leader's going to have a slowdown.
Oh no, that is huge for Josh Anderson. Could lose it here. Jake Maloney having to give up a place to Brady Myers. Zach Rattray-White could find himself fighting for the lead in a couple of seconds, but he can't get past Maloney in turn 1. He'll go round the outside, coming into turn 2, and gets alongside Myers on the exit of 2 as well. What a move by Zach Rattray-White as Anderson still clears the slowdown. Zach Rattray-White to the lead out of nowhere.
There were 5, 6 slowdown penalties from that final chicane. So many drivers misjudging it, leaping too far across the curb, not wanting to yield position, battling side by side. There'll be plenty for race control to look at, but those who kept it clean have been really rewarded, like Zach Rattray-White and Brady Myers. 2 spots gained on that opening lap now as they lead the train, and Josh Anderson's gone from the lead to 7th.
Man, that is huge for Anderson. A big loss very early on, but it's a long race. You can certainly gain that back by playing the strategy. For now, though, it's Rattray-White in the lead as we get a replay of Robbie Gibbs jumping the start here alongside the Eclipse number 3 of Cody Deeth. You see him get it into gear there. And that was it. It was only a tiny little leap forward, but it was enough to trigger the jump start. That must be painful for Robbie.
Going to be a bit of pain through the field. There's a bit of pain at the hairpin now. James Chastanoff cuts across it. Blake Warboys has spun around.
Oh dear. It's an awkward spot too. That's when people are just getting up to speed out of the hairpin. So Warboys falls back to just ahead of Jacob O'Reilly there, 34th place. It looks like James Chastanoff has had a problem as well. He's just lost 3-4 positions. Richard Hampstead having a lightning start from the back of the grid all the way up to 26th already, and it's still trouble there for James Chastanoff, as now he has to give that up to Brock Salmon as well. It's an absolutely crazy pack at the back here.
Yeah, so I think from cutting the hairpin, James Chastanoff had a slowdown penalty that was costing him all the way down the casino straight. Aaron Phillips has got one, but he started right at the back of this field. Tiding now from the top 10, not like it was a lap ago where Joshua Anderson had to give up a slowdown penalty and they were going either side of him streaming past. Rattray-White settling into the race lead now on lap 3.
Here's what happened to Shasty. Did he get any help with this? Oh yeah, looked like he got tapped around a little. And that put him off the track, and there's the slowdown. There's Warboys spinning up ahead. It's gracious, some very difficult runnings for these drivers to negotiate, but Shasty having to clear that slowdown one way or another, losing bulk positions on the way into the final corners, and it got even more awkward for him here. ERT car alongside him, and then Brock Salmon taking advantage around the outside there. A lot of drivers who we expected to be way further up the grid suffering big issues at the start here were not even at the end of lap 3.
There's the onboard, Madison down.
Oh, slow down for down! Might even say it was a slow down.
And Cody Deeth, wherever he is in the field, so we rode on board with it, picked it up just as he got it, and it's gone now, and he's all good, but it's cost him 4 spots there. Remember, he was in 6th, challenging for 5th, now he's back in 10th.
Yeah, big shame for our former series champion, Cody Deeth, meanwhile, under pressure from Gert Stenberg. Got Teo Sorono right ahead of him. Sorono, one of a few drivers with 6 positions gained to his name. Look at Stenny's laser focus here as he makes his way around one of my favorite pieces of racetrack in the world. I love the flow of this section of the circuit. Of course, it can be very difficult to pick your line when you're right in the middle of a pack like this. How's the exit here for the TTR number 47? Flicks up through the gears nicely, but probably didn't get the exit he wanted.
There is not a driving coach in the world that would tell you to drive like that, but it's one of those things where it just works. Slow down here for Cody Deeth, so he pulls out a line and gives that one up quickly. That's a position for Stenberg.
Meanwhile, James Chastaneuf and Sam Blacklock on lap 1, the orbit drop their machine on the outside there with the Banter Alliance car. Yeah, and that's James Scott getting alongside them, and that probably pressured Shasty into going a bit late onto the brakes there and gave a bit of a tap to Sam. And the position was changed there, happening on lap 1. Well, Stenberg now 14th. Down a spot from where he started, but doing all right. Emily Jones, the next driver to suffer a slowdown. I pity anyone who's trying to keep a tally of this.
It's insane. Cody Deeth's had like 4 at this point. He's gone from sort of inside of the top 10 to 20th here. Big conflagration through the hairpin here. I think that's Ewan Baker on the outside, muscling with Emily Jones, who's trying to get back up to speed.
Far from ideal for many of these drivers, and Baker able to get to the front of the pack there. Jones now trying to defend on the inside here. The 19th place car of Dylan O'Shea right on the back as they're 3 wide, and Deeth tries round the outside now, recovering from his slowdown, shuffles Jones wide over the marbles. They all managed to get out of the corner cleanly, but I have no idea what's going to happen corner to corner at this point. I mean, this is V8SCOPS through and through. Such intense racing all throughout this field.
We need to get rid of the tyre compound column on the timing and institute the slowdown column on the broadcast, because they're all doing it. They can't race side by side easily across the chicanes without one person picking up a slowdown. And I think we're only a couple laps away from a flurry of race control and stewards' decisions about some of the earlier stuff we've seen. Now, for every moment that Bo Albert is on the screen, people will be saying, what's that? He's leaning against his backrest and his elbow bend is less than 60 degrees. Can we get Kurt Stenberg back? But peak performance takes many, many different shapes.
It certainly does. For the time being, Albert in 7th spot, gaining 4 places. There you go. That's the comparison there. Of course, as I mentioned in qualifying, Stenny started sim racing on a stool. He didn't have a seat with a back to it, so he got used to leaning forward to grip the wheel, and he just never got rid of it because it worked out all right for him. And why fix what isn't broken in Stenny's case? Incident under review from race controllers. Oh no, that is Benefield around, and it looks like some hefty damage to the 95 Sim Sports 034. I completely missed that race control message in the process, but
the car in front of him might have had a slowdown penalty, and Daniel Benefield is asking race control to look if he was blocked.
Okay, now the shoe is on the other foot. Well,
we'll have a look, see if that isn't what happened. So Briggs is behind Benefield here.
It's Coxhead ahead, and
oh, yeah, that is what it is. Car in front slows down out of the corner exit.
Yeah. Looks to me like Chris Cox said, either just failed to get on the power or had to slow down to serve. Taps the brakes, apparently, we're hearing. Have a look at the brake lights here of the Jinx Shifter's car ahead. And yeah, there was a tap of the brakes there. Oh, and that sends Benefield around. So that is a block with real consequences there for Benefield's race. Well, for my own benefit, Jay's put that incident message back up. Contact between Blacklock, Phillips and Scott on lap 1 at turn 8 under review from race control. And as you said, David, potentially one of many, as Baker is sent wide by Jones through turn 2. Blacklock versus O'Reilly at turn 10 as well under review from lap 1. I certainly don't envy race control's job, but the opening round of a season as competitive as this.
So Ewan Baker had a slowdown penalty coming out of the final chicane just then. So as he's trying to get back up to speed, that's where they're all jostling him, sending him wide through this group. But now he's managed to settle down, I think, in front of Briggs, but now behind Jones. So he's been battling Emily Jones multiple laps this race. Zach Rattray White's falling down from the race lead as Brady Myers takes it.
Oh, he certainly does. Slow down for Rattray White, and he can't turn in for the hairpin. That's Anderson, who started on pole, having to make his way through. Job Stewart keeping it clean, as has Rehan Leonage. They've all benefited, up 3 positions, along with Myers. Maloney still in second place in the midst of all of this. And Anderson now defensive versus Zach Rattray White. Just enough room being left in the braking zone. And Anderson will keep the position for now. Yeah, I wasn't expecting... Oh, it's another slowdown for Rattray White. God.
Man. This is the first one. I think it's on the way in, so it's turn 8 there, not turn 9. Pulls out of the way, and then it's at the hairpin. He's trying to get back in, and then through the chicane is where he's gone, and picked up another one later on around the lap. Disastrous for Rattray White from the lead to 10th.
Yeah, man. The amount of slowdowns that we've seen, we're not even 10 laps into this race. Almost every driver in the field, I'd wager, has gathered a slowdown at some point. Even former series champions. It's frankly insane.
Yeah, I mean, where the track limits are set is not in line with how much curb these cars are capable of taking. If this was the, you know, Dallara Formula 3 online Premier Series, we wouldn't be talking about it, because they can't launch as much across these big white curves. They can't take as much air through the final chicane, but these cars, they can. We're racing lunar rovers and penalising them when they find new rocks on the surface of the moon.
Yeah, for sure. Blacklock carrying some hefty damage to his front right there, all the way at the back of the grid. He's just come out of the pits a couple of laps ago. First driver to clear one of the 2 compulsory pit stops they'll have to negotiate over tonight. James Chastaneuf, next driver to add another slowdown to the list, falls back to 34th place again. We've got Byron Phillips, Blake Warboys and Daniel Benefield ahead of them. And we flit back up to Kurt Stenberg. Still fighting in the top 14 here, but Dylan Rudd is the man in front of him. And Rudd at the moment is the top Chiefs car. Seeing that James Scott hasn't been able to make up 11 positions, but certainly would have been hoping for more in the first few laps, being the reigning champion of the series. Warboys, the next car to come into the lane, and yet another incident under review from race control. Looks like Chastaneuf and Hampstead, as well as Darren Lobb, coming home on lap 2 into each other, seemingly. Well, Stenberg, once again, laser focused as he pursues Dylan Rudd.
Don't let Kurt Stenberg's posture distract you from the fact that he's got a glass of water sitting on top of his wheelbase and some serious vintage-looking audio equipment back there.
I've been to Senny's house. The room that he races in has some fantastic memorabilia. Got a big slot car track as well in the garage too. Fantastic little setup that Senny has here in Perth, Western Australia. Meanwhile, fight's still on for the top 10 here. Rattray White trying to get 9th place off Madison down here. Got But Andrew Dyson right ahead of them, and Dyson's one of the drivers that I think has kept it the cleanest thus far. He hasn't been involved in too much drama and is up 4 places. Nothing to be done into the chicane for now, but the next mess up, the next slowdown, and it could be a move. It is a mess up, unfortunately, for Andrew Dyson. He'll have to be defensive versus Madison down here, but a move around the outside is certainly possible. But Madison, showing his many years of experience there, deciding to back out and find another corner. He's going to shuffle him out of the way in turn 2.
Well, you saw Dyson get a little bit wide, Madison down, keep your nose really, really tight. There was sort of 7/8 of a car to get your nose in there, and he did, and there was a little bit of contact. So I can see that both ways. I can see that as Dyson going wide and Madison down getting in there and then getting squeezed. I also see that as Madison down using his nose to open up a little bit of a gap at the apex that wasn't there before.
All right, well, 2 positions lost on a single lap there for Andrew Dyson, but he's still in the top 10. Still a good result. He's got to keep an eye out for Seth Brown, who, remember, topped the first part of qualifying. Brown's had a pretty good race. Up 3 positions thus far. Looking to break into the top 10 there. Seth is a driver who, I've expected to see around about the midfield. And, well, he's continually improving, as is everyone in this field. Leonage now up to 3rd place by virtue of slowdowns for other competitors up the top. Myers and Maloney not far ahead of him. We're on the 10th lap of the race, about to begin the 11th. And we've had a few drivers make their way through pit lane, some for a drive-through. In the case of Robbie Gibbs, he had to pit for a drive-through penalty, it seems. But largely, we're waiting for maybe around about lap 15 or so for the earliest pit stops to come from the front of this field.
Leonage, like Bo Albert, following the conventional advice on where to place his steering wheel, which is arms full out in the Superman position and have the top of the wheel about where your wrist is, and then you pull back to hold onto the wheel and you've got about 20 degrees of bend in your elbow. That's what they would recommend. And again, different strokes, different folks. You see, cricket bowlers with weird actions at the top level, and you go, surely they shouldn't bowl like that, and yet somehow they're in the best 5 bowlers for their nation, so surely it works.
Different strokes for different folks, as it were. Maybe Stenny also taking a bit of inspiration from sprint car drivers. I've definitely seen the inside of a sprint car, and maybe you're going to crank that wheel around like you're driving a bus. Fastest lap goes to Blake Warboys, fresh out of the pits on new tyres. Only 2 laps into this stint, getting his first compulsory stop out of the way, and on the pace for sure. He's got clear air ahead of him as well, so despite the issues that he suffered, the spin in the first couple of laps, still potential for a result here, and a safety car could change everything for everyone.
Yeah, so 2 stops. Again, it's that 90% fuel capacity because it's such massive tanks for these cars. So it's a competitive 2-stop race in 200 kilometers. There's a slight restriction on it, and they are going to need to take a bit. Compared to Split 2, most of these pit stops are governed by how much fuel they take, not governed by how long does it take to change 4 tyres. Warboy stopped 15 seconds, so he also loaded a bit of fuel in. So yeah, it's just pitting. Adam Briggs has been around at the hairpin.
Okay, well, quick replay of that one. Briggsy at the front of this train. Byron Phillips behind in the Eclipse Camaro. Gets on the brakes and just a little touch there at the entry to the hairpin. And off goes Briggsy. He will be none too happy with that sequence of events.
And those guys were battling over like 31st or something. You've got Byron Phillips, Adam Briggs, and James Chastanoff who've all had 5 slowdowns apiece. They are the last cars that are running that haven't made a pit stop or had a penalty. So, I mean, that was for 30th. It was a bit rough.
Bo Albert's just gotten into the top 5. Made a brilliant move on Anderson at the hairpin. As about to negotiate it themselves. Tao Sorono in 16th place. Cody Deeth just ahead. And This is a tale of two races so far. Serrano up 3 spots, keeping it clean for the most part. Cody Deeth, unfortunately, falling victim to slowdowns and minor bits of contact all the way through the race so far. There's a lot left to go here in this first round of V8SCOPS for 2025. Keeping an eye on the lap times, it seems like Cody Deeth is definitely the faster driver. And is that a slowdown for Serrano? Looks like it might be.
Yeah, it is. There's a whole bunch of cars that just leapt for pit lane, so I think we're really getting into it now. Brock Salmon, Ryan Jones, Daniel Benefield.
Yeah, all pitting 12 laps in. There's Jordan Ross. Is staring at the rear end of Seth Brown for the time being. Smooth and gentle on the steering on the way through these chicanes.
Short shifts as well in the traction zone there. So second to third, a little early. Just trying to be kind to these tyres for the moment. It's been a good one for Jordan Ross, having started out of 18th, now running in 12th, picked up a couple of spots. Been one of the drivers that I haven't seen pick up slowdown penalties too often. He's good. Yeah, whereas there's a few others that are, his pace or quicker, but just, a little too risky, or as they say in France, risque, with the track limits.
Indeed, cranking the wheel through the hairpin as well. It's been interesting seeing the minor changes in driving style that have come with the Gen 3 chassis. In earlier years of V8SCOPS, you wouldn't be seeing drivers short shift all that much, as fancying half a move into the chicane there. But yeah, short shifting wasn't really done all that much. Montreal, as Stenny decides to come into the lane here to clear his first compulsory stop, they would be holding second gear all the way out of turn 7 and be full on the power. But with Gen 3, and I've experienced this myself behind the wheel, I've done a couple of official races in these cars. You see a lot more usage of that lower part of the rev range. These cars obviously cut something like 60% of the downforce that the Gen 2 cars generated, and so mechanical grip is where it's at. And these cars can only produce so much, so through the slower corners, you're seeing the drivers baby the cars a little bit more.
Yeah, and while the rules on the engines are very similar and the power is very similar, they are not carryovers of the previous 5-litre engines. They've gone to slightly more OEM spec stuff, so 5.7 in the Chevys, for example. Still doing 7,500 RPM, still giving the same amount of power, but from a slightly larger engine. So I think the torque curve is different, even if the peak power at 7,500 RPM is similar. And that's what you're trying to do when you're short shifting for traction. It's if, there's a little bit less torque, you can dull it a little bit at 5,000 RPM. The previous engines might have been really sort of maxing out earlier, and so there was more advantage to throttle controlling it than gear shift controlling it. Stenberg's got new tyres and more fuel waiting on the hairpin.
Yes, so Stenny comes out behind James Chastaneuf and Byron Phillips. 11.4 seconds stop for Stenberg, which is right in the ballpark for what we expect. Takes a little bit more fuel, I'd gather, in addition to the 10 seconds it takes for the tyres, so potentially going long here on the middle stint. Battle's still on between Burton, Down and Rattray White at the back end of the top 10, as Cody Deeth and Emily Jones are the next drivers to visit the pit lane for their first stop.
Oh, Albert's been one to quietly sneak his way up inside of this top 10 for all the dramas we've seen for Josh Anderson and for Madison Down and Zach Rattray White, all of them with some very costly slowdown penalties at times that have dropped them away from the lead of the race in the podium positions. They've ended up just behind the top 4 seem to be the cars with real pace to burn at the moment. Brady Myers leading Jake Maloney, and you saw a little bit on board with Rehan Leonage and what he's doing in third place, just sitting in the toe of the race leaders at the moment. It's a top 9 at the moment. That's what I'd say about this race. Approaching, probably the first round of pit stops soon enough for the race leaders. It's sort of a top 9 situation.
Couple of factoids being dropped here by Jay in our chat. there are 2 drivers who have not gained a single incident in this race, which frankly amazes me. There is one driver that is halfway towards getting a drive-through penalty for the incident limit. It's a 25 incident limit in V8SCOPS, and that driver is on 13. Of course, Jay is not going to tell us exactly who those drivers are. We'll obviously find out at the end of the race if anything develops from that. More pit stops, Dyson, Baker, and James Scott. And it makes sense, especially for James Scott to take his pit stop now. He's battled his way up. He's been fighting through those packs down in the trenches. And now he can potentially try and set himself up for a good last 2 stints. Maybe gain a few more spots besides. He's certainly a quick one, is James Scott. Got the number 1 on his car for a very good reason.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some variation of the pit stop times from these first stops. So obviously it's quite similar to some of those other, you know, minimum fuel drop races that people were used to in the past, where if you take a lot at your first stop, you're heading for a shorter second stop. You take a short first stop, you're going to have something to pay around this second stop. So for James Scott, he's gone 13 seconds of fuel. Andrew Dyson went 16 seconds of fuel. Kurt Stenberg's only gone 11 seconds of fuel. So I think this could work out pretty well for Andrew Dyson later on. Rahan Leonage dropping down as Bo Albert goes for pit lane. So he's one of the first inside that top 9 to blink.
Interesting decision here from Albert, and keep those pit stop time numbers in mind we were talking about before, as Albert brings his car to a stop perfectly up on the jacks. Meanwhile, Sam Blacklock through the hairpin, trying to grab 23rd place off Mike Taliancic and Teo Sorono. He gets ahead of Sorono on the exit of the hairpin, but Sorono's coming back at him just a little bit here down the straight. You can't see Sorono from that angle, but they are side by side, and Blacklock backing out of it, deciding, okay, it's not going to happen here. We certainly saw in split 2, David, that side by side through the final chicane is less than ideal. Gibbs, Coxhead, Lobb, and Chastanet now in the lane, and it looks like Robbie Gibbs is going to clear his second stop there. Oh no, actually,
No, he had the
first
drive-through from the
yes,
jump
the first
start.
time he went through the pits was the drive-through for the jump start. I remember now. So that's his first compulsory stop out of the way for Robbie Gibbs.
Nice to blend in front of that little group led by Daniel Benefield, Blake Warboys, etc. So that's pretty key. So Albert's come back out in some nice clean air. That's good.
Yes.
I think you might see some of these other guys go for it. Quite a few of them in the top group. I can even see they've got their spotters in the session. So Jake Burton's got Alexander Bird in session as spotter, and then there's a few others with spotters in. So Anderson and Burton pit, and they see if they take a similar pit stop time to Bo Albert, they're going to come out in clean air, and that's what you want. We're past 1/3 race distance with 2 compulsory pit stops. If you're cutting this race 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, then it's time for your first stop.
That it is. And Anderson, Rattray, White, and Burton in the pits. Brown, O'Shea also in the lane too. Myers, Maloney, Leonage, and Stewart continue cruising on in the top 4 places. Oh, is that slow down for Bo Albert. Oh, that's the worst time for it to happen. They've all come out ahead of him there. Could have been a great gain of time there for Bo, but a little bit too much curb at the final chicane has just ruined it.
I think you lose more time to a slowdown when you've got fresh tyres as well.
Yeah.
I think if you're on really old tyres, it kind of half clears itself as you go. But on brand new tyres, you'll be flying along and it's like, oh, whoa, you're going way too fast. You've got to give up heaps of time. So relative to your performance potential on newer tyres, it could be even more costly. And he might have blended, probably would have been in front of these guys. Now he's in behind Josh Anderson, Zach Rattray White, Jake Burton, a few guys that he was in front of. Really short stop from Zach Rattray White though. Rattray White's going to have to pay some of that back later on.
Yeah, and you'd be forgiven for thinking it was just a tyre stop with how close to the 10-second bracket it was. Meanwhile, Seth Brown has got his mirrors full of Dylan Rudd here, and the 990 for Chiefs Esports Club gets the run out of the chicane and gets the inside line into the hairpin, Brown is going to give that position up early. And focus on self-preservation there. Meanwhile, Michael Taliancic in up the position to James Scott, who just got the fastest lap of the race. Remember, James is fresh out of the pits. Now he's got some clear air. Now he can take advantage.
Jeez, this is messy behind Emily Jones with Cody Deeth side by side with Brock Salmon trying to come off of the hairpin and sideways by side coming off of the hairpin.
Absolutely, this is definitely Larry further back.
Leader pitted, so now Jake Maloney, Rehan Leonage and Madison Down carry on into the lead of the race. Brady Myers comes out of his pit stop in 4th position ahead of everyone else who's stopped, so I think that's worked out pretty well for Myers. And here is a look.
Keep an eye out for Ryan Jones here over the curb on the grass. Big snap. Braking traction there. Unfortunately, as Matthew Bowler emerges out of the pits just behind that pack, that's one of the pitfalls of having a locked differential in these cars. Both wheels are always putting the same power down to the ground 100% of the time. So you run over the grass and you're just going to be losing grip on that inside, and that will unload it. Oh, there we go. Maloney comes into the lane. Leonage is going to continue long here. Wonder what this will bring in the near future. So Rehan is now the only car yet to make a stop. Long run here from the Phoenix number 79, who is definitely no stranger to winning in V8 SCOPS.
Myers was the race leader before all these stops. Nasty bounce across that curb, but he's not going to have to sort of slow down. Zach Rattray White here is side by side with Joshua Anderson, so they're costing each other a bit of time. Rattray White gets ahead. It's going to blend in. They're blending in just now. Well, there's Down all the way back there.
Yeah, so Madison Down's pit stop 13.3 seconds. Get another view of this move here. Oh, it's just a poor run through the chicane there for Anderson.
Yeah, I think he had understeer on the way in, and rather than hop the curb, he had to really whoa it up to try to keep within the track limits. He'd rather lose, 1 second with the understeer than lose 2 seconds with the slowdown. So that's what happened for him, is he avoided the slowdown, but he did make a bit of a meal of it with some understeer. Car didn't rotate on the way in like you'd like.
Now the race will settle back into its rhythm again as soon as Rehan Leonage clears that second stop on board here from Rattray White. We're going to see what that looked like for him. A little bit of moving around in the mirrors and on the brakes for Josh Anderson. Tries to turn in, but he's carried a bit too much speed into the chicane there. And Rattray White was in the exact right place to get that move done. Back up to 4th spot as Leonage is finally in the lane. Made it 20 laps, nearly half race distance on that tank.
Yeah, so what do you do now? Do you really fill it, or do you take just a little splash? Brady Myers will probably go back through to being the race lead. It's a question of, does Leonage blend still back into the podium positions? 13 seconds of fuel. Interesting. Probably be able to hold on to that third, I think. There's first, there's second.
Okay, so Leonage comes out just ahead of... oh my goodness, all right, I was about to say... just came out ahead of Anderson. I completely forgot about Rattray White there. That was adventurous for Rehan Leonage. Well, he's on fresh tyres, and he can definitely take advantage of those to try and stay ahead of Zach, but tell you what, Rattray White seems to have gotten rid of the slowdown gremlins for the time being. This is what the blend looked like. There's Leonage there emerging out of the lane, and Rattray White tight on exit, and I almost could have fancied a move, but too much momentum for the 79.
Interesting. So now you've had one pit stop from everyone in the field. No second stop from anyone yet. Not sure exactly what that critical lap number would be with a 90% fuel tank size though. So we probably haven't crossed it just yet. This is always considered a high fuel consumption track, especially for a street circuit, it's considered quite high fuel consumption. So, I mean, front straight full throttle here. You do get to full throttle between all the chicanes on the way around the back as well.
There's a full throttle time here on this circuit. Leonage has gotten off to the perfect start of the stint. If anything, he's gained a little bit more on Rattray White since coming out of the lane. A car length now between them, and Rattray White has a lot to think about here. Fastest lap goes to Madison Down, meanwhile. Down coming out in 9th place, but a 36.3. That is quite the lap from Down. 2 tenths faster than the fastest lap that James Scott previously held. Meanwhile, Chris Coxhead with a bit of an adventure here. It looks like Bowler finding his way out the inside at the hairpin, and then a couple others try to follow them through. And it was Gibson O'Shea that found their way through there. So for Coxhead, that is a few more positions lost on his way out of the slowest corner on the racetrack.
So with those pit stops from everyone and that great lap time coming along from Madison Down, I'm looking at the stop times from everyone inside of the top 9. And there's kind of 2 drivers I'd want to be. I'd want to be Bo Albert in 7th with already 15 seconds of fuel on board, or I'd want to be Job Stewart in 8th with nearly 17 seconds of fuel on board, whereas it's only 10 seconds from Zach Rattray White. He's got this track position in 4th, but then you think he's going to have to pay 3 or 4 seconds at the next stop compared to these cars around him. And you look, how many cars are within 3 seconds of Zach Rattray White? Quite a few.
Yeah, more than any driver would be comfortable with, I'm sure. Andrew Dyson and Madison Down, apparently, making contact back on lap 10. Something that we missed. But here's a replay of it. Okay, so it happened at turn 2. So Madison Down with a great exit from the chicane there, gets alongside Andrew Dyson. Who was the aggressor in this one? Okay,
oh, this is the one we saw him get his nose under.
Yeah, exactly. This is the one that we saw live. So, yeah, Down getting a little bit of a wiggle on there as he bumped Dyson. My apologies. Race control investigating that one. First driver to clear 2 pit stops right here. The Vermilion car of Cody Deeth, I believe. No, Emily Jones. My apologies. Okay, so, right. I got a bit confused with cars on screen and Emily Jones just completing her stop there. So
it might be as well, though.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Cody Deeth pitted a lap ago. And so... yeah, it looks like the Eclipse car of Cody Deeth was the first to clear 2 pit stops, but now Jones joins him. 23 laps left to complete in the race, though. Those tyres are not going to be a huge fan of their drivers by the end.
PB lap last time from Leonage as he closes in on the lead from 3rd place. Madison Downs closing in Bo Albert. We're beginning to compress into a couple of sort of 3-car packs up front here. So 3 cars for the lead, 3 cars for 4th in behind Zach Rattray White, and Job Stewart, Bo Albert and Madison Down compressing here as well as you see them navigate that. Madison Down likes a tighter line through that turn 2 hairpin than everyone else.
Yeah, we saw something similar with Kurt Stenberg in qualifying, didn't we? The TTR cars, they straighten up the exit very tight out of turn 2. And that results in them getting in a straight line a lot earlier and carrying some momentum. Certainly plenty of lines possible around this racetrack, and evidently, according to TTR, that is one of them.
Yeah, because you see quite a few really try to carry speed through turn 1 as if it's just a curved braking zone, and then sort of taking a double apex at turn 2, whereas Down is sort of inside tyres up on the curb, rotating around the tight line there, really shortening the distance, then squaring it and getting the throttle. And who am I to say it doesn't work? He's still got the fastest lap of the race at a 36.3. Leonage is one of the closest with a 36.4 to his name that he's just only recently set. But would have been assisted by the toe that he's got from first and second, as Leonage just third in this group, bouncing across the curbs at the final chicane.
Rattray White, Anderson and Burton battling over fourth. Bo Albert still keeping up a position in the top 8. And oh dearie me, Kurt Stenberg, Dylan Rudd, Seth Brown and Jordan Ross. They have to go single file through there, but there's been a rollicking battle going on there between Stenberg and Brown. It's going to come to an end there with a slowdown for Seth.
Dylan Rudd, who had the slowdown there, he drops to the back of this group.
Oh yes.
Stenberg, Seth Brown, and Jordan Ross go ahead in a surprise to probably absolutely no one. Car with the most positions gained at the moment is James Scott on 19. Jordan Ross is doing okay with the 5, getting to the tail of this group with Sam Blacklock with plus 14. Of course, you've got a couple of cars, just a few that have made their second stop, so some of this isn't exactly true until you've seen the second pit stop from everyone.
Yeah, we're at that point where everyone's done something slightly different, and you have no idea of knowing exactly what fuel load each car is on. You can infer it from pit stop times, but we're not going to figure out exactly where everyone's going to be at until those second pit stops really start coming into it. Meanwhile, Leonage keeping himself in touch with Maloney and Myers. It's a very similar situation to what we saw in Split 2, where the top 3 were just with each other the whole way along. And remember, that top 3 battle in Split 2 erupted late on in the race. There's a lot of potential for that to happen here too.
It's getting much later into the afternoon of this race. It's gone from mostly cloudy to overcast, so that means more cloud, sun lower in the sky, track temp down to 22 Celsius is going to help the tyres stay in there. I think this really comes down to a fuel race at the final stop. All of your top 3 here took 13 seconds of fuel at their first stop. There's a couple of comments on Maloney here, but if you can have a 1 second... Leonage is within 1 second of the race lead. If he has a 1 second faster stop, he becomes the leader around those second stops. So that's the game they're playing amongst the top 3 here. It's also the game that Job Stewart is going to play. I think Stewart's got ahead of Albert for 7th while we weren't watching.
Indeed. Stewart now back up to the position he started in. It's been a bit of a roundabout journey here for Job, but finding himself in a good spot, and one of the longer pit stops out there, 16.8 seconds by my timing.
This is why I reckon Job Stewart, Bo Albert is still possible for a podium, because Job Stewart is 3 seconds behind Zach Rattray White, but with 6 seconds more of fuel on board. So he can get Zach Rattray White at the next stop. I reckon that's almost a foregone conclusion. We're going to look at this, which is probably going to be a slowdown for Bo Albert.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A bit too deep into the chicane, off into the grass, momentum lost, and Job Stewart says, "Thank you very much, mate."
And then to continue my point, Job Stewart's got 3 seconds more of fuel than Jake Burton, and he's at Jake Burton's rear bumper. Bo Albert has an issue through turn 1 and turn 2, so that's fallen apart a little bit for him. He's got a couple more seconds of fuel on board than some of those others around, so Job Stewart sneaky for a podium here is the David Haynes top tip.
In comes Tao Sorono to get his second stop out of the way. 13 laps completed on that middle stint. And we'll see if he's good to the end. Looking a bit further up the road, Matthew Bowler in the middle of a sandwich here with, sorry, that's Sam Blacklock. Apologies, that's that we're looking at. Michael Taliansich and Robbie Gibbs are the bread of the sandwich.
Real what could have been here for Robbie Gibbs as well, because he had that drive-through penalty that he's already served, and he's come back to 8th. So for 9th on the grid, I reckon he'd be right in that leading group, even contending for a podium, if not for that drive-through penalty.
Decision from race control on the contact between Dyson and Down. No further action. They are letting them race. So Little moves like that where there's, you know, an ever so slight bit of contact, a slight bump, and the other driver loses a tiny bit of momentum. That is fine. You're able to continue on regardless. But if it had resulted in a spin for Andrew Dyson, or if the contact was a little bit harder, we might have been hearing a different story. Oh dear. Another slowdown for Bo Albert there, and he's going to give up the position to Madison Down. I gotta wonder.
Walking over his wheelbase or something. It was sitting pretty good. He was in that 5th position. I said I like his strategy, and now I wish I hadn't said that, because he has got a couple of slowdowns that have costed him a couple of spots here. And critically, now he's 7 seconds behind Zach Rattray White, with only 5 seconds more of fuel on board than him. So he's losing out on that. He's losing out on the possibility for a top 5. There is still a decent gap between this top 9 cars, Brady Myers leading to Bo Albert and then the rest of the pack. But he's just dropping back a tiny bit with these. It looks like he might be like rear locking or something. He might have worn the rear tyres out somewhat across this stint, with more weight of fuel in the back of the car.
You got to think a lot about tyre wear in these cars. You always have. Gen 3 especially. The way the weight comes off as the fuel burns is certainly relevant. Track temperature falling down a little bit, it seems. So the tyres might get a little bit of a break here.
Jesus, he's done it again, Bo Albert. Another slowdown, cutting too much in the final chicane. What is going on with that? We go to the replay here. This is Robbie Gibbs.
Nice move up the inside of Sam Blacklock there, and not much response from Sam on the exit.
So the thought I was going to have is that Brady Myers did 18 laps on his first stint. There is 18 laps to go now, so quite a few of them. I reckon it's about time some other people go, let's roll the dice, let's do something, let's get on another fresh set of tyres early here.
For the lead moving on through. 23rd lap we're hearing there for Blacklock.
And when you see the last pit stop time on the timing column, that's one of the things I'm most excited about when we get around to the second pit stop, because the bigger that number now, the less it's going to have to be at your next stop. Drivers like Job Stewart, Andrew Dyson, perhaps even Jordan Ross, Michael Taliancic, expect to see them jump up a bit. And Job Stewart's also doing good pace while he's got all of that advantage to him as well. That's wide from Rudd.
Yeah, but it's not the end of the world. Very wide on the exit of that hairpin. It actually used to be the start-finish stretch when the circuit first opened. But Brown's going to pick up the slipstream here. That is, okay. I thought for a second that was Brown.
And he's tricked Brown.
He's
Tricked Brown into breaking too deep with that as well.
Yeah, second stop for Dylan Rudd. This is why, you know, coaches, when they're teaching you about performance driving, they say, you know, don't get target fixated. You can't always focus on the car ahead of you, because in circumstances like that, you'll see them braking at the braking point for the pits, and you practically guarantee that you're going to sail through the final chicane.
And both of us had the same reaction in real time. We're like, oh, has he braked a bit early here? Oh, wait, no, the guy in front's going for pit lane. Oh, that means he's actually braked a bit late.
Yeah.
Understeered, got it. So you can see why the driver in the cockpit would think exactly what we were thinking. Your reference point at the car in front sailing away from you, like, oh, I've braked a bit early. Let's ease off the pressure a little bit. Oh, no. Whoopsies. Now I'm in way too hot to make the racetrack, because I was watching someone who was trying to make the pit entry.
Now we're hearing it's just been announced, a 15-second time penalty for Chris Coxhead. That blocking incident that we saw as Anderson is going to be the first from our top 5 to go for a second stop there. But yeah, it did look like some egregious blocking there from Coxhead as he was trying to clear that slowdown on Daniel Benefield there. And race control agreeing with Benefield's assessment.
Good pace from the top 3 that we're looking at here, as there's a whole bunch of other drivers aiming for those second pit stops. Taliancic should have a pretty quick one. He was one of the drivers I called out as a long first stop. And there's a chance that Job Stewart is being held up a tiny bit by Jake Burton, and the pace is picked up from his leading 3. So I think Leonage in particular is now 3 seconds clear of Job Stewart, which is what he needed to be to cover off the shortest second stop from Stewart. So the pace that the top 3 are doing is playing them into looking like they're going to be the top 3 come the end of this race based on the pace they're doing at the moment. I think once we have that final stop, though, you don't see Jake Maloney and Rehan Leonage lifting off as much and giving Brady Myers as much space as they have in this middle stint.
Very true. It's been a very strong middle stint for our top 3. Anderson fresh out of the lane meanwhile, and 15.3 seconds. Stopped there as from behind our top 3, Zach Rattray White is going to respond. Anderson just making his way out of the hairpin here, and oh no, black flag for Zach Rattray White. Speeding on pit entry. He was too late on the brakes.
That's a super, super costly penalty. It's like 40 seconds or something. You're meant to get down to 80 k's an hour. Helpfully, you can see the pit lane, you can see the speed in the dash. That's got to get down at 80, and no, it's like 100 on his way in.
Man.
Black flag for Zach Rattray White. Job Stewart came in at the same time, and I'm interested to see the stop time for Job Stewart here. Just 11 seconds would suggest that some of the other drivers are going to need 16 or 17 second stops to get their fuel in right at the end. He's going to blend out behind Anderson.
Yes, indeed. And did you notice with that onboard from Rattray White, he got on the brakes for pit lane, but he seemed to lift off the brakes a little bit.
It's that little turn that they've got to make as well. You can't carry as much brake pressure once you're turning to try to get into the pit lane. And we saw in supports on Friday night that a few drivers would lock up a front brake in the braking zone for pit entry just as they made the turn.
Yeah, but watch this. It wasn't necessarily the turn into pit lane where I saw Rattray White lift off the brakes. It was roundabout when he was almost coming up on these guys. So, yeah, interesting. I'm not sure exactly what the full cause of that was, but long story short, should have braked earlier.
Yeah, I think we can do a full investigation and report, 6 months, 200 pages, and say he started off too fast, he braked too late, and he was going too quick when he crossed the cones. Bo Albert's going to hit, so Josh Anderson's the highest running car that's made a second stop at this point, then Job Stewart, then Dylan Rudd. We've got second stops to come from a lot of top performing cars. Did that look like Brady Myers was giving it a fair bit of beans, like he's expecting he's going to make his second stop soon?
I've been seeing shades of that occasionally all through the race from Myers. We've gone to a static cam occasionally, and he's just been hanging the rear out a little more. He just did it then on the exit of turn 7 as well. He's managing it well, but you get the feeling that Maloney, at least, is a little faster right now. In fact, all you got to do is look at the lap times. Myers on the last lap, a 137.8 versus 137.7s for Maloney and Leonage. So I think maybe he is trying to gear something up for a pit stop here. And if he's losing pace now, probably this lap is the time to go in.
He's a tiny bit wide off the hairpin, so Maloney is now super close to Brady Myers. Myers is covering the inside line a little bit and going for pit entry.
Yeah, there we go. Hard on the brakes for Myers, and he slows down in time for the pit entry line there. Jake Burton is going to follow him in. Two Trans-Tasman cars in for this pit stop, and one continues on in the lead in the hands of Jake Maloney, but the Phoenix Racing Team car of Rehan Lienage now senses this is the time to really start gaining some more. Question being, when are Maloney and Lienage going to pit themselves? Do they pit this lap or do they wait a couple more? Because they were sort of middle of the road with their pit stop lengths.
Yeah, so it's been 14 laps for Maloney, 13 laps from Lienage. Lienage, of course, with the longest first stint of everyone. So he probably wants to go long again in this one, I'd imagine. Brady Myers, who's landed relatively comfortably ahead of Joshua Anderson, is comfortably ahead of Job Stewart. So yeah, it's about the pace that these two can do right now versus the pace that Brady Myers is doing. I think Myers has got relatively clean air after his stop as well, so it could continue to bode well for Myers unless Maloney somehow pulls out a bit of speed that we haven't seen. Last lap for Maloney at 38 flat. They had been lapping in the high 37s. I think this could be a mid 37 again if they don't pit.
Yeah. And into the pits comes Jake Maloney, and Lienage has not followed him in. So Rehan's going to stay out a little bit longer on this second stop too. Going to be going for some of the freshest tyres of all in the final stint. Now, one point that we wanted to make here was the marbles. Have a look at this shot here and just how little grip there seems to be off the racing line. I mean, there's a lot of dust being kicked up by the drivers, and a lot of that is going onto the circuit there. That's the brown. But you see the black speckles? Those are marbles being thrown off the tyres, and they are particularly bad with the Gen 3 cars. If you go offline, you run over those, and you just slither off the racetrack.
Yeah, a whole bunch of places like wide out of the hairpin at the end of the racetrack, and other places where the marbles have really, really, really built up. Brady Myers still ahead of Jake Maloney. Maloney's blended in about a second behind. Josh Anderson, he's got a fair little bit of undercut off those last couple of laps, so he's right with Myers and Maloney. James Scott sets a new fastest lap of the race down in 15th there. So Lienage, 37.7. He's going to need to keep that kind of pace up, or he can get undercut by Myers and Maloney.
Yeah, my question is, what's Myers' first couple of laps going to be like? Because if they end up being a couple of seconds faster than what Lienage can manage, then it'll definitely be time for Rehan to come in, and he has. So Rehan Lienage taking his second stop there. Have a look at this marble shot meanwhile. This is on the way into turn 4. Look at how little grip there is offline there. That's the reason why you're seeing these side-by-side moves later on, and the car on the outside is really having trouble keeping the pace.
I cannot tell you how much of 2020 I spent watching marbles on YouTube, so I'm an expert in the subject matter. Pretty short stop fuel-wise from Rehan Lienage. Where's he going to blend?
Oh, he's going to come out ahead of Myers. That is to the lead for Rehan Lienage. Now, can he hold on to it? A little bit of contact there, side by side on the way into turn 4, and he's lost it. Oh, if it weren't for that, Lienage would have been able to hold on to the lead there. But I tell you what, he's got tyres 2 laps fresher than Myers at the moment. So I think it's on.
Yeah, Lienage got a bit of wheel spin. He was on a dirty part of the racetrack exiting the pit lane there, and he obviously didn't have the tyre temperature quite yet. So he thought, oh, here's my opportunity to blend in front. Really went for it. It was a bit sloppy.
Yeah, unfortunate. I think he might have carried a bit too much speed coming out of pit lane there. Meanwhile, Byron Phillips escaping without permission under investigation from race control.
It'll have to be a penalty for next race or next event or something, because he is already gone. But for Lienage, he stopped just there. It's on the screen. His first stop was the same as Myers, same as Maloney. His second stop here, significantly shorter. He's going to have some fuel saving still to do. Maloney's all over him, and this is presumably about when Byron Phillips decided he was done. I'm going to guess that's what this replay is.
Yeah, went wide,
marbles.
spun on the marbles, and out he went. That looked like an Alt F4 to me.
So Leonage just did manage to hold on to that second place from Maloney, but I mean, we saw Leonage doing a big chunk of fuel saving in some of these earlier runs, but Maloney would have been in position to do the same as well. And then Leonage has taken 2 seconds less of fuel at that second stop, so there's still going to be management from it. This is the double-edged sword. This is the scales of justice for Leonage. He's got the freshest tyres. He's probably got the least fuel, so he can carry mid-corner speed, and he's going to have to get that fuel to the end and to save and still have pace. There's Stewart back there in 5th, just ahead of Jake Burton. Fastest car last lap around was Jake Maloney in this pack. Leonage seems to have those tyres underneath him now.
Yeah, the thing that Maloney's going to have to look out for here is Myers and Leonage battling.
Save. Leonage just went for another massive save into turn 8 there, like 100-metre lift and coast.
And that was the pit exit for him there too. Just a little bit of a wiggle on the way out. So Leonage is, he's trying to stretch this tank. He's going to try on the outside into the hairpin. Needs to make sure that he's still in the slipstream so he can keep up with these guys. Gives up second place to Jake Maloney.
Josh Anderson is looming in the background. They're leaning on each other in places here. We'll take a look at the other angle.
Yeah, Leonage was deep on the way out of the pits, wasn't he?
I think there hasn't been any wheel spin from Leonage there. The two of them have just come together, and then it's given Leonage wheel spin.
Yeah, I think so. But also just seeing, like, usually on the way out of the pits, you brake a bit early and you're just feeding on the power as soon as you pass that blue cone that signifies the blend back onto the racetrack. But it seemed like Leonage was carrying the brakes a little bit further, so he might have missed the braking point coming out of pit lane.
Darren Lobb's stop will mean everyone has made their second stop, and with 9 laps to go, we are racing to the checkered flag.
We are indeed, and what a race we have on our hands. Not just for the top 3, but also for 5th. Job Stewart versus Jake Burton here in the Camaros for the top 5.
Yeah, now 5 seconds ahead of Madison down. Well, in 8th, and Dyson 9th. The top 10 is a battle between Dylan Rudd and Jordan Ross. I think Jordan Ross has been closing in on Rudd with some slightly fresher tyres there as well. James Scott is plus 22 positions. Richard Hampstead's plus 17. So some big movers through all this, but through the hairpin, the top 3 are absolutely bumper and bumper.
And race control looks like is reviewing that incident between Leonage and Myers on pit exit. Oh no, it was the incident at the hairpin actually. Sorry, it wasn't pit exit. It was the run through the hairpin when Myers shuffled Leonage wide there. Pit exit looks like it was okay in race control's eyes. Just a racing incident, if that.
We might agree with that. The two of them were level. They sort of bumped doors, and their paths were both sort of coming towards. Leonage wasn't all the way at the left-hand side of the racetrack, but also Brady Myers was coming across a little bit, and I think that was all fair. Here's that super tight line off the turn 2 hairpin once again, and your top 3 have never been closer. I'm still seeing Leonage trying to save a bit of fuel here and there where he can, as if he might have still gone just a tiny bit short. Once you get to that point, I think he's game on to try to fight these two for the win.
Yeah, definitely. This is a really interesting battle. I mean, I'm so glad that V8SCOPS is back for this year. It's always been one of my favorite series. Racing has been close and exciting consistently since 2014 when we first ran our test season. Very long history of this championship. Meanwhile, as Leonage almost goes for the move there. Slow down apparently for Jake Burton there. And, well, makes sense. He was all 4 tyres on the white. And there's Leonage getting up into second place.
Yeah, he had a big lunge from a long way back. Maloney gave him the space. Now Maloney's going to try to pull out of the toe. Now Maloney cracks the throttle. Lienage rests in second place. It's going to be 7 laps to go this time.
Big slide for Lienage on the exit of the chicane there. And lap times will tell the story of this run here. Lienage, the fastest car in the top 3 there. 0.2 faster than Brady Myers. This is how he made the move at the hairpin. Didn't look like it was a... Oh, hello. That's interesting. Did Myers get on the brakes a bit early, or did Jake Maloney overshoot? Because it looked like he had to compromise his entry there.
I think there's some games going on here. Lienage really sent that one, though, and I think Maloney just had to give him a bit of space. And to Lienage's credit, he did get his nose to the apex, stay tight to the apex. Not like he dove in there and then bombed wide and shoved him out. It's like, well, I'm most of the way up here, and I'm making the corner. So that's that. Turn 8 and 9, one of the places on the way in at 8, where the drivers have been getting the slowdowns. Lienage looks like he settled the car really well on the exit through there.
He's having another look up the inside of Myers this time. Brady delays the turn in ever so slightly. Lienage is rounding up the pressure here at the moment. He's turning up this dial. Remember, Lienage, I believe, won the opening round of V8SCOPS in 2023 at this very circuit. So he's got a lot of form to back himself up here. New cars, somewhat new field as well, with plenty of returning drivers and some new as well. 6 laps remain. Lienage could be on here versus Brady Myers, former champion of the series himself, for what is turning out to be a fantastic battle for victory.
Yeah, so I think Lienage is still feeling that he's got 2 lap fresher tyres than Brady Myers, and it's showing in some places. The traction zone out of turn 2 looks really good. Myers, I think, just all day, you're right, has been driving a little more tail out than some of the others. Here's another example. It just looks like a tiny bit more grip for the car in second place compared to Brady Myers up front. Top 3 are putting in really good lap times here. It's in the low 37s, mid 37s. They're pulling away from the rest of the field while they do this. So you're just looking at your 3, most elite operators.
One Camaro versus 2 Mustangs. Meanwhile, another Camaro versus Mustang battle. Ryan Jones and Daniel Benefield, apparently. Unsafe rejoin under review. So looks like we're on board with Jones here. Benefield going deep, getting on the grass, and then trying to get back out on the track. And Jones got stuck in the marbles.
Insane how little grip there was on that dirt and marbles.
Yeah, the car just refused to turn.
I think the grass that Benefield was on had more grip than that.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Crazy.
Yeah.
5 to go.
Yeah, that's it. 5 to go. And Brady Myers still leads from Rehan Lienage, and looks like Rehan's dropped back ever so slightly, but by the same token, Maloney seems to have dropped back a little bit too. So it's not quite as intense as it was, but these guys are still gearing up for something special in the last few laps.
Track temperature getting even cooler because it's heading further into the evening. Cloud cover still over there. You can
Did Myers hit the wall just then?
I didn't hear it, and I was on him, so I ought to have heard it.
I heard a thump, and he definitely got into the wall.
Well, he's getting a bit of bumper. He gets another bit. Lienage gets out of the throttle to not turn Brady Myers around, and then Jake Maloney puts his front bumper to Rehan Lienage's rear bumper.
Oh boy. Definitely does it on your way through the chicane. And we do have a replay on the way here. Look at this on the exit of turn 4. Oh, that is a good whack, but I don't think it's done any real damage to the TTR Camaro.
I like how he goes past the camera just to reveal that Lienage is massively sideways. They're all on it here, and they know what they're playing for. They were sort of bumper to bumper locked together coming through the hairpin once again. The speed difference between sort of 50 k's an hour through that hairpin up to 275 k's an hour here. They just sort of compressed through that really slow sequence.
Indeed you do. Well, what Myers needs to make sure of is that he can't get into that wall again. Got to be careful on the exits here, and keep an eye out in the background there. Josh Anderson ran a 37.7 on the last lap, and
Myers is parking him. Myers is parking him in a couple of places. He's done it again at the hairpin there, so he's doing it at the far hairpin. He's done it at the turn 2 hairpin. Myers is up to something here.
yeah, might he be backing these guys into Anderson? Try to get maybe a TTR 1-2-3 out of this. This is
Myers has lost about like half a second a lap of pace over the last 2 laps here.
Yeah, what's going on? Very interesting. Well, that contact we saw at the hairpin between Leonage and Myers has been deemed a racing incident. Play on.
Leonage mega fuel saving again on the way into turn 8 there. He had a couple of car lengths to Jake Maloney, which he doesn't always have. So whenever he's got enough space to Maloney that he thinks he can coast in and not be passed, he's doing it. And so if Maloney stays close, Leonage can't lift and coast without giving up the position. So that's what Maloney needs to do. Maloney can turn this if he just stays within 2 car lengths of Leonage, doesn't let Leonage fuel save easily.
Here we go, the slipstream now for Jake Maloney, but there's no opportunity to get up the inside of the chicane. Leonage will do well to keep eyes forward here. Oh, he's big curb usage through the chicane there, right in the slipstream of Brady Myers, as we now have 3 laps to go at Montreal. And they're all back into the 37s, but Josh Anderson's still faster than our top 3. We're hearing mechanical black flag for Zach Rattray White, a man who we thought would be fighting up the front, but everything went wrong for him, unfortunately, after he sped into the pit lane. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I am looking at Rattray White's car, and the front bumper looks like it is a little loose, and it seems to be crabbing a little too. So we're going to get an answer. Big incident, apparently, for Zach Rattray White, involved with Darren Lobb, but we'll keep our eyes on in the bottom right-hand corner, that top 3 battle. So Darren Lobb and Zach Rattray White coming together here. Lobb is the car behind at this point. Rattray White over the curb and the marbles. Oh, a little bit of a slip, and then Darren Lobb has very little option there.
The right rear suspension gets damaged as well, and sometimes you get a meatball flag if your suspension is far enough askew. It might be Zach Rattray White. Can it be 2 to go here? Myers picked up the pace last lap. I think Myers has picked up the pace again this lap.
Tell the story here across the line. For Brady Myers, time across the line of 37.5, so the pace has picked up here. And Rayan Leonage has matched him, if anything, 100th of a second faster.
Jake Burton, the fastest car on track last lap.
Looks like he was. 37.4. Catching up to Job Stewart.
Remember, he was right on Job Stewart, and then he dropped 2 seconds back with a slowdown. Now he's back to Job Stewart again with the amount of extra pace that he's got. Try to get himself into a top 5 position. Bit of lap traffic around here because it's your top 3, then Joshua Anderson, then Job Stewart here, and Jake Burton battling 5th and 6th.
Oh, those marbles are an ever-present threat at the exit of the chicane, aren't they? Leonage is
Leonage.
closer than he's ever been to Brady Myers here. And protecting the inside is the number 22. Oh, forcing Leonage a little bit wide there. That opens the door halfway for Jake Maloney, but the outside line is with Leonage here. Careful not to take too much curb, otherwise you'll spin the tyres up. Second place is still Rayan Leonage's for the time being, but Brady Myers played that well.
Leonage and then just escorting Jake Maloney back to 3rd place as well. Going to be one more lap of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve to kick off V8SCOPS in 2025, and Leonage is in trouble.
No! Slow down for Leonage! And that is going to
He's off the podium.
secure a podium lockout for Trans-Tasman Racing on the final lap. It happened at the exact wrong time, or has it? Josh Anderson deep in turn 1. Oh, and he might have to clear something there too.
No, he's good. He's just got
Okay.
dirty tyres. He's got really dirty tyres.
Oh, don't be on the outside here, Rayhan. Got to be careful. Might run off the circuit. Little bit of a slide there. Keeps it out of the wall. But now Job Stewart's starting to catch up. That Eclipse Mustang in between them is a lapped car. It's Cody Deeth, who's running down in 33rd place. That's what happened to Anderson. Just completely lost it under brakes there. Lucky to hold on.
You see, he went across the grass and the marbles. He had pretty filthy tyres for a little bit. Seems like he has cleared them. Now, is this hold station for 1 and 2 there? But 3rd, 4th, 5th is all on for Anderson. I think still got pretty rough state tyres, and we know Leonard's not afraid of sending a dive.
Yeah, neither is Jake Maloney, apparently. He's having a look at his teammate there at the hairpin, and there's a bit of contact between the TTR cars. Defensive for Anderson. Leonard's trying to get an over-under sorted here. But Job Stewart is right on the back of him. Could Job Stewart be looking at a podium coming out of the final couple of corners? We'll wait to find out. But for now, 1 and 2 at the front of the field. A little bit of a look again for Jake Maloney, but there's nothing to be done. Brady Myers, out of the final corner, is going to win the opening round of V8SCOPS for 2025. And it looks like with Anderson exiting ahead of Leonage, it's going to be a 1-2-3 for Trans-Tasman Racing, but it's mighty close. Job Stewart almost getting Rayhan Leonage at the line. But the youngest driver in the field still finishes 4th.
This top 10's getting completed by Jake Burton, Madison down. Andrew Dyson's already over the line. Bo Albert in 9th. And here's Jordan Ross, I think, just ahead of James Scott for 10th and 11th. James Scott, from no qualifying time, blew up his engine on his first flying lap to 23 positions gained in 11th. Could have been inside of that top 10. That is a sort of championship damage limitation kind of drive.
Yeah, and, well, starting off the season with something like that, the only way is up here for James Scott. Still battling between Ryan Jones and Daniel Benefield for 26th place, and it looks like Benefield might have a slightly better run out of the final corner here. Drag race to the line, but Jones wins it. And we have just a few more cars left across the line. Emily Jones and James Chastaneuf. And it looks like a slowdown for Emily. Coming out of the final turn. Both of them get slowdowns. And it looks like Jones.
Slowdown for either of them. I don't actually
Really?
see a slowdown for him.
Oh, that's...
Okay.
Apparently there was one for Chastity, but yeah. I'm
There were a
not
few
too sure.
drivers that I saw maybe look like they coughed and spluttered out of fuel between the final chicane and the line.
Yeah.
So it would be funny if Jones was out of fuel while Chastaneuf had a slowdown penalty. This might be a car that's out of fuel for the race winner, Brady Myers.
Yeah,
And
well,
if Leonage makes a cool down lap, I'll be surprised.
I think that adds a little bit more to the story of Brady Myers sort of backing up into the hairpin there. He was obviously trying to save a bit of fuel to get to the line. Oh,
High drama, and it started off with just incredible amounts of tense action, slowdown penalties. Saw multiple drivers who were leading the race drop to the back of the pack, and the one who stood tall was Brady Myers. You saw Zach Rattray White, Madison down, others pick up slowdown penalties, but not Brady Myers in the critical clutch moments.
well, that's your results then. For the first round of the season, Myers, Maloney, and Anderson. Trans-Tasman Racing is back, with Leonage getting 4th, Job Stewart in 5th for ERT. But Burton and Down make it 5 TTR cars in the top 7. What a turnout for the team, and what a result. Andrew Dyson makes it into 8th spot. Bo Albert in 9th, and it was a very adventurous time for Albert. Could have been in contention for a podium, was definitely on for a top 5 before he suffered his issues, finishing ahead of Jordan Ross, who gains 8 spots to round out the top 10.
Over the page, James Scott from the very, very tail end of qualifying up into 11th, ahead of his teammate Dylan Rudd in 12th. Then there was Kurt Stenberg, Mike Taliancic, Seth Brown, Robbie Gibbs, 16th, even despite a drive-through penalty for jumping the start. Richard Hampstead in 17th, Matt Bowler in 18th, Tao Sorono in 19th, and Ewan Baker in the 20th.
Indeed. Richard Hampstead gained 18 spots there. Great to see. Sam Blacklock finishing 21st, up 10 places. Blake Warboys and Dylan O'Shea could certainly have been a better race for them. They suffered issues early on, and they were just on a recovery from the way back there. Jacob O'Reilly and Brock Salmon rounding out your top 25. Salmon, along with Jones, all finishing in there in the positions they started in. Benefield wasn't able to beat Ryan Jones to the line. It was a matter of half a car length or so. Chris Coxhead, Emily Jones, and James Chastaneuf rounding out your top 20, with Adam Briggs being the last finisher on the lead lap. Rattray White coming home a lap down, had a mechanical black flag, and suffered a really ignominious penalty when he sped into the pits. Cody Deeth comes home 2 laps down. Still good to see him circulating at the checkered flag. Darren Lobb suffered very heavy damage later on with that mechanical black flag for Zach Rattray White, him partially being the cause of that. Byron Phillips retiring from the race and classed as a DNF for not requesting a tow from race control. Well, it's time for podium interviews, and it is the Trans-Tasman show. I'm getting 4 years ago vibes at least, but Brady Myers is here to join us here from Victory Lane. Tell you what, Brady, you seem to be saving fuel there in the final stint, out of fuel on the cool-down lap. It was very intense there with you, Rayhan, and Jake.
Yeah, it was pretty touch and go there at the line. I was cutting it fine for fuel, and I wanted to make sure I came out in the lead. And yeah, it was on for young old with Rayan and Maloney, and yeah, it was just a really good race. Yeah, didn't really expect it coming into tonight, so I'm really chuffed.
First round of a new season with the new cars, and you guys have already had some time to get used to these new machines. Gen 3 certainly just as good for racing, if not better than the Gen 2s, from my perspective anyway. What about yours?
I think there's pros and cons to it all, but I think overall Gen 3 seems much better, much more close racing. I think you can bang doors and not really fling each other off as much, so yeah, really enjoying that aspect. But yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around the car. I don't think we as a team really have it glued yet, but we're getting stronger, and I think tonight's performance kind of showed that even in a race package we're pretty bang on the money.
Now, Montreal is a track that's very familiar to a lot of V8SCOPS drivers. Manicourt, not so much. It has been run in Logitech G Pro Invitational as well. It's going to be a bit of a tough track in these cars, I gather.
Yeah, I'm not really sure familiar with Magny-Cours. I haven't done too many laps around there before, so after tonight's draw, I might have to actually put in some work for Magny-Cours. But yeah, we'll see. It's good start to the team for the year. Podium lockout and Madden Burton in the 10, so we're all chuffed and pretty itching to get on with the season. We're keen to get going.
Yeah, so are we, Brady. Thanks very much for joining us. Is there anyone you want to shout out before we let you go?
Yeah, not that you guys can probably see it on the car because we've got to upload our liveries of all nights to upload, forget. But we just announced a big sponsorship partnership with simracing.com. So big thank you to simracing.com for jumping on, and to Virtual Racing School, to my partners Extreme for their continued support, to TP Races on Card Effects, and to you guys for the broadcast, and also to Brock Salmon and Matt, who put in the work on the setup this week. They put in the hours, so we get the chocolate. So thank you to them.
Very sweet tasting chocolate indeed. That's Brady Myers there from Trans-Tasman Racing, winner of the first round. Next up in the Mustang was Jake Maloney, stood by with David Haynes.
Well, super intense battle for the podium right at the final stint there. A two-stop race, and it looked like Rayhan Leonage there had a slightly shorter stop. Could have had you guys beat.
Yeah, definitely. He had really good pace, and I think that first and second stint, he played it well, sitting behind the group, and there's a big advantage in that, and he obviously looked after his fuel and that, and was able to get a good stop at the end there, and yeah, he had good pace for us at the end. he got the move on me, and I was kind of sitting behind hoping him and Brady would battle and I could pick up some pieces, but it didn't quite happen. He got the slowdown in the end, and we got a 1-2-3 for the team, which is awesome.
Brady says with this new Gen 3 car, you don't have to be quite as afraid about, using your bumpers and your doors, and we saw a little bit of this inside of your podium battle, even though you did have to give a bit of space at times.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've never been afraid of using the bumper in any car, so yeah, this one's no different. Yeah, we got into him there in the last little bit, and yeah, all good fun. Not going to do anything silly, but going to have a go.
And the Gen 3 car, not brand new to iRacing now, but definitely sort of pretty new to SCOPS in that sense. So what's the difference in what it lets you do, what it makes the racing look like, how you approach strategy, setup, qualifying, all of that? What's the essence of what's new with Gen 3?
I think you've just got to minimize the mistakes, and the car doesn't really like racing. You've got to sort of not look after the tyres a lot and not really race each other in those first few stints, and sort of build it up towards the end and then go after it. And yeah, we had a good race there at the end, and yeah, awesome for the team.
The 2 long straights, did the slipstream feel powerful or not particularly powerful as you were, running in second, running in third?
Not too powerful, especially compared to the old car. Like, you get a bit of it, but you can't just drive right by. It's definitely a lot harder to make moves now, which is a good thing, I think.
Well, congrats. Great teamwork, great team effort, great result to kick off a new year and a new season, and hopefully you can rest and put track limits and slowdown penalties out of your mind now.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a stressful one, this Montreal. To get speed, you're so on the limit, and luckily Brady and I avoided the slowdowns, which I think shows in us having the 5-second gap over the field. And yeah, that was one of the keys to the race, and yeah, we managed it well.
Well, Brady also delivered some thanks to everyone who makes it possible for him and for you guys, but to the winners, the chocolate's your chance as well.
Yeah, big thanks to everyone on the team. Simracing.com, that's our first race with them and on the cars, and yeah, awesome to get a 1-2-3 for them. And yeah, Brock Salmon for the setup. Really enjoyed driving the car he set up this week, and everyone else on the team for the setup work.
There we go, Reese. Jake Maloney second in the opening round of V8SCOPS for 2025.
Indeed, and third, with a heck of a recovery, Josh Anderson joining us, third place from the opening round, Josh. But man, the slowdowns really bit, didn't they?
Yeah, mate, I'm pretty gutted with myself, to be honest. It's I have a habit of, I don't know, bottling it's the word, or just, yeah, I was just basically asleep thinking about when did Woolworths change their logo on the back straight on the first lap, not focusing on what I'm doing. And yeah, I just was, oh shit, I got a break. Like, that's basically all I can say. It's just, yeah, I'm completely gutted with myself. Like, it's time after time I make the same mistake over and over again. It's not good enough.
Oh, well, take nothing away from the drive you put on after that mistake. To be able to recover to third place after sitting in those sort of doldrums in the middle of the top 10 for so long is certainly worth something, and it's always a learning experience at the start of a new season.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think in the past I would have probably been more upset with myself, and I definitely have that propensity, I suppose, and made a lot more mistakes than what I did for the rest of the race. I think 3 or 4 years ago, I would have finished the race 15th because I would have got angry at myself and got 10 more slowdowns. So I'm relatively happy that I was still upset with myself. I was, as you can imagine, very upset with myself. But I sort of compartmentalized that and just put it to one side, and I didn't get any slowdowns for the rest of the race. I did have that screw up with the last lap, which I was, again, just asleep. I was like, oh, Rayhan made a mistake. And I was thinking about Rayhan. And then I was like, oh, I got a break. Like, I've really got to work on that. It's just something my mind wanders. So it's really, I things you just can't quite believe you make those mistakes when I've been racing for 10 years. So, but yeah, the actual race itself, like in the last thing I drove really well. Like, I had quite old tires compared to the front guys. I know they started to battle at the end, but, I was doing like 37.5s, on old tires every lap almost. So that was good. I actually haven't done that much racing in this car, really. Like, I haven't driven this car for 6 weeks before Thursday. So that was, you know, it was good to have decent pace, I suppose. But yeah, just like when you always analyze your own performance, and when you don't perform to what you think you should be capable of, or you know, you get quite upset with yourself, which is something that you just have to, as you said, take as a learning experience. And I've had a lot of them, and just make sure I put that one in the memory bank and remember how it feels when you screw up like that. Don't let it happen again.
Oh, well, plenty of opportunities to put that into practice for the season to come, Josh. Thank you very much for joining us, and still, congratulations on the podium. Still an excellent result to come away with in spite of those errors. So, is there anyone that you want to thank before we let you go, mate?
Yeah, it's good. Like, I love Trans-Tasman Racing's, like, we're like mates. I don't really call it a sim team. Like, genuinely, the guys in the team are like some of my best mates of people that I've ever met in my entire life. So, you know, when we were at Madison's wedding a few weeks ago, we're all there till, you know, early hours of the morning, hanging out, just like we're all mates. So it's awesome to get on, and we all, you know, like people like Brock Salmon are back sim racing at a high level again. So like I raced on Brock's set, so it's pretty cool that he's back, and we're all working together. We all just have fun. Like, you know, sim racing is competitive, and we all want to do well. No one wants to be a wobbler, but we have a lot of fun at the same time, which I think is what the hobby's about. Because at the end of the day, it's a hobby. So yeah, I'm very lucky to be a part of TTR.
Absolutely. Well, that's Josh Anderson there. Thanks once again for joining us, and wishing all the best from here on out, especially, David, considering Manicourt hosts the next round of the championship. March 23rd, we race in France, and this is a track that I think is very underrated. Former Formula One circuit. It is tough, it is fast, it is flowing. There's plenty of heavy braking zones around here, but yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for chaos too.
Oui, Mr. Reese, just 3 weeks until we go to Manicourt. You're right, some fast corners, a couple of big stopping hairpins. Hey, how about just a couple of curbs as well? I think it will be great to keep this rhythm going in the new season, and see if some of the drivers who struggled today at Montreal can come back strong, and if TTR are going to continue the ripping form that they appear to be in after this opening round.
Absolutely. Trans-Tasman Racing, bringing those old school vibes back. Those comments from Josh Anderson or anything to go by. We'll see if they stay on top at the next round of the championship. We want to thank you all for joining us here on SimSpeed TV for the first round of V8SCOPS for 2025, the first of many. My name's Reese Gardner. David Haynes was with me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. We'll see you next time.